in the province, especially in 2014 when Zuma was still the party president. Mantashe says the ANC's victory in KZN during that time can also be attributed to former provincial leaders such as Sihle Zikalala and Senzo Mchunu. He was speaking at the Richards Bay taxi rank in KZN.
President Zuma was never a leader here, except when he was a Minister of Economic Affairs. He has always been a national leader of the ANC. So he cannot be doing a work here when he's national. So it's not him. You better say Sihle or Macingwana. So those are the leaders of the province. That is the time. So we want to go back to those times when there is a new leader of the ANC here, Duma Siboniso.
15 people have been injured in a crash between a taxi and a truck on the N2 highway near the N3 interchange outside the Durban CBD. Airless paramedic spokesperson Gareth Jamison says the taxi overturned following the crash.
This morning, Airless paramedics responded to a serious taxi and truck accident on the N2 northbound at the Spaghetti Junction. Paramedics arrived on scene to find total chaos as they found that a taxi had collided with a truck before the taxi had overturned. Approximately 15 people from the taxi had sustained multiple injuries ranging from minor to serious and were stabilized on scene by advanced life support paramedics before they were rushed through to nearby hospitals for the urgent care that they required.
And Nicaragua has withdrawn the concession given to a Chinese billionaire over a decade ago to build and operate a canal that would link the Atlantic to the Pacific Ocean. The decision was taken by the Nicaraguan Congress, which is in effect controlled by President Daniel Ortega. The BBC's Leo Rocha has more.
The project was meant to create an alternative to the Panama Canal, which was built in the 19th century and struggles to cope with the demands of modern cargo ships. The new canal would be wider, allowing the transit of modern supertankers and big container ships. When it was announced in 2012, it was criticized by Nicaraguan farmers, indigenous groups and environmentalists. There were concerns also about the credentials of the Chinese businessman awarded the concession. Construction never began, and the Chinese billionaire Wang Jing has since lost most of his wealth.
The top story at 3, Parliament's Human Settlements Committee has offered condolences to the families affected by the collapsed building in George in the Western Cape. For SAFM News,
Coming up in your sports, the South Athletics South Africa to host more training camps for relay teams and Mumbai Indians first to exit IPL playoff race. More details at 3:30.
And we would buy 500 cars and we would buy 500 more. So sell your car for the best price and we won't think about it twice. We buy cars, we buy cars. Da-da-dun-da-da-dun-da-da-dun-da-da-da. We buy cars, we buy cars. Da-da-dun-da-da-dun-da-da-dun-da-da-da.
We Buy Cars, the easiest way to sell your car by far.
Mama Kiti, I heard Randwater talking on the radio about how dangerous it is for people to encroach on their pipeline servitude.
Yes, those high-pressure Randwater pipelines are under the ground distributing megaliters of water. When people build on top of the pipeline, Randwater is unable to conduct maintenance on the pipeline, which has a negative impact on water provision. Pipelines can burst without warning. People could get seriously injured or worse.
Yes, people can die from a bursting pipe. That is why people need to understand that Randwater servitude is where a Randwater pipeline is located. If we build our houses or businesses on a Randwater servitude, then we are encroaching on that servitude. They say if communities want to know whether they've encroached over servitudes, they should look for the Randwater beacons.
The beacons indicate the presence of Randwater pipelines under the ground. They're rectangular, made of concrete, are painted either white or blue, and have the Randwater logo on them.
Let's take a walk around our area to see if there are any Randwater beacons so that we can also tell the neighbors.
Randwater, celebrating 120 years of existence and still finding new ways to provide clean, portable bulk water.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
This is the National Pulse, and you, of course, have a clear sense of fingers on the pulse and what we're feeling right now. I'm sure of that, isn't it? And I wonder what it is you'll be thinking about all throughout the day. Let me tell you, we'll be talking about that investigation potentially into that building collapse in George, because lots of questions now going to be asked, understandably so. Then the impact of South Africa's foreign relations with the USA, how that impacts on the people of South Africa. And then there's more. We also have equal education, to demand equal education, going to Parliament tomorrow. And Herman Mashaba from Action SA, well, he is my guest after 5 o'clock, right? So all of that coming up. But let's start with That's My Point. Now, a few days ago, I had a conversation with some of my relatives who just came back, who went to Japan and just came back, right? And they indicated just how spotless that country is, how spotless, how orderly the people are, how they stand in queues in an orderly fashion, how they get into trains, and complete order and silence and no noise. They're absolutely in service of people around them all of the time, right? Now, we first experienced the Japanese doing just that during the Rugby World Cup, which the Japanese hosted, right? And we saw that after, the games, the Japanese supporters just cleaned up the stadium, and you'd wonder, like, what's the plan here? And you often wonder, is that like part of a national volunteer campaign that was for the World Cup? Maybe. Then you see them at the FIFA Football World Cup in Qatar, when the Japanese are playing, and they do the same thing. And this is clearly not part of a national volunteer campaign in Japan, and they do the same thing. And you wonder, what is it about their culture? What is it about their ethos? What is it about their people? What inspires them to be completely committed to just serving society in whichever way possible, to bring ease and not harm, to bring ease and not pain? And that got me thinking about other places. I mean, similar experience happens in Kigali in Rwanda. The city is certainly spotless. And then in Singapore as well, right? And, well, the question then is, what's my point? Well, my point is this. So what stops South Africans from doing the same thing? What stops us adopting a culture where we will, A, not mess in public, and B, we will ensure that others do not mess or litter in public? We will make every effort we can to build up the communities that we live in every single day, right? And this really applies to you and me, okay? Because you know that, I often say this, you build a champion nation by building champion communities. So what about it to you and I? What about you and I paying closer attention to the communities that we live in, to our streets and the litter? And what is it that effectively brings down that community and converts that into what is it that we can do that can lift up that community? If we do that in one community and then extend that across the length and breadth of our country, well, quite honestly, that's what champions do. So here's a question to you. Do you want to live in a champion community? I'm Ashraf Garda, and that's my point.
Ashraf Garda on the National Pulse.
Right, you have heard us, and in fact, I want your thoughts on that issue. What do you do? So how do we adopt the Japanese example in South Africa, bit by bit, day by day, within the spaces that you can influence? I'm not talking about politics here. I'm not talking about the country. I'm talking about you and I doing something at very, very basic community level. Can we do that? Can we adopt that day by day and make a significant difference in our country? And if we can, well, I want to hear from you. So you can WhatsApp, that firstly, in text form or as well as in voice note form, 0614 104 107. And then, as always, you can call in to 086 000 2032. You can post on the SAFM Facebook page. You can also post on the SAFM X platform on the old Twitter using that hashtag, the National Pulse, because everything we do on the show must in some way reflect exactly what the National Pulse is all about. Well, the National Pulse for now is certainly very much the issue, the tragedy around the goings on in George. Okay, so let's. I understand that besides the numbers of people who have died, and effectively it's now a situation of not even rescuing people, but just trying to salvage what they have. There's been a call now from the parliamentary chairperson for Human Settlements Committee, that's Makwena Semenya, to call for a full-scale investigation into the cause of the George building collapse. I think there's no surprises on that. The question is that how will that take place? So good chatting to you, and thanks for speaking to us, Chairperson.
Good afternoon, and good afternoon to your listeners.
Much appreciated. So you talk about a call for a full-scale investigation. Who should be doing that investigation?
NHBRC as a regulatory body for home builders, they should do that investigation with the assistance, of course, of the National Department itself, to make sure that we understand what happened in that situation. What happened to the building, whether it's a structural defect, whether what went wrong, so that we must learn from those mistakes. We must tighten our legislation for us to be able to deal with such problems, that they should not repeat themselves.
I mean, I can imagine that your call for an investigation is not a surprise. I think it's an absolutely obvious thing, right? That I would expect that at any stage when this sort of thing happens, right? But do you think that the fact that you've made the call now would add more currency? What I'm asking, would the regulatory bodies effectively having gone and investigated anyway, with or without your call?
As the portfolio committee responsible for human settlement, we have a responsibility to make that call. Whether the department has acted or not. But what is important is that our call is not a mere call, is to understand what has went wrong. And for us as members of legislatures, if in terms of the act that we've passed, there are loopholes that we have to close, we will then do that. And we've made that call as we are passing the important bill that we have just passed as Parliament, which strengthen the collaboration of the spheres of government, which is tightening the role that the NHPRC should play as a regulatory body, and to make sure that every builder in the country is registered. And of course, the important thing is that those that are found to have done wrongdoing, they will have to pay the consequences.
I mean, the issues of investigation and wrongdoing, I would have thought, often when you have disasters like this, then that sort of investigation takes on greater currency. But the reality is the checks and balances around wrongdoing should be part of the normal course of events into any building construction, don't you think?
Yes, that's why I'm saying we have made that call, because we're passing the important bill, which strengthens, by the way, the bill, that the act that was in place. And this consumer protection bill is more of protecting the consumers themselves, and it's important to make that call so that you can then understand in the future what needs to happen, whether the inspectors that are employed, whether the engineers that are employed are doing their work, and what is it that we must do as Parliament to strengthen. Because losing one life, it's huge.
It's certainly huge, and
Yeah.
and therefore my point about how much of preventative measures takes place in issues like this. I mean, there's been so much speculation about the quality of the work, about the type of workers, about the relationship that they have between employer and employees in terms of contract workers, in terms of alleged shoddy workmanship, in terms of shortcuts. But what my point I'm making is that sadly so, I don't think this could be an isolated case. I think there could be many issues like this. And in some cases, people get lucky and nothing happens. And in a case like this, the impact is devastating immediately.
This incident is a serious one because, as I'm saying, losing one life as South African citizen, we must get worried because life you cannot replace. So therefore, it's important for those that have powers or they are given responsibility to act. They must actually start to act to make sure that such mistake doesn't repeat themselves.
What are the checks and balances if, when investigations occur? And I know we're preempting the entire process, but what are the checks and balances in terms of measures once findings occur? For example, where do you fit in? What can you do?
The bills, the bill that we have passed today, is amending the Housing Protection Measures Act, which has been there since 1994. But the Housing Consumer Protection Act is meant to protect the consumers. It's meant to regulate the builders themselves and register them. Because, for instance, if you have a building that has been built and you know that this person has a register, and the inspectors, both the inspectors of the municipality and the province and NHBRC are working together to make sure that from the foundation, there is inspection, that there is a proper material that is being utilized, there is a proper home builder that has been employed, and therefore you will not actually default. The check and balances of the bill that we have passed today, which is just it has been debated in the few months back, and it went to the second house, which came back to us as national for the amendment that the NCOP has made. Today we'll finalize it that the president must put his signature, that it must then be enacted as an act, replacing the one that has been in place. And this one is strengthening the monitoring and the consequence management and protect our consumers.
Well, I'll tell you what, the sooner that happens, the better. I think we're all absolutely on side with regards to that, right? Thank you for your time. Much appreciated. And certainly it's an issue we need to track, not just today, but in the months ahead as well. Thank you for your time. That's Makwene Semenya, the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Human Settlements in Parliament, relating to that tragedy in George, where in a moment, people's lives changed. Those that died and others who were rescued, but families, so many people affected just overnight, which appears, certainly a building collapse that was being built, which does speak to shoddy work, maybe, right? We'll find out the whole story on that one as and when it develops. Lots of people want to comment on Japan and whether we can emulate some of the ethos and culture of the Japanese. As soon as I can, I'll take your calls and WhatsApps too. We'll talk about South Africa, the USA, foreign relations, what it means to you in a moment.
The SABC Fortune Combo radio stations, which includes SAFM, Lotus FM, and Radio 2000, seek the services of a freelance graphic designer who will collaborate with cross-functional teams to create visually compelling assets that align with our receptive brand identities and resonate with our target audiences. The minimum requirements for the position are a bachelor's degree or diploma in graphic design, visual arts, or related field, 2 to 4 years proven experience as a graphic designer with a strong portfolio showcasing a range of design projects. All interested candidates should submit their CVs and portfolio of evidence to vacancy@safm.co.za. Application closed on the 26th of May 2024. For more detailed info, visit www.safm.co.za or follow us on our social media pages @SAFM Radio. SAFM, leading the conversation.
The Road Accident Fund will be announcing the winners of the Road Safety School Competition and youth projects to be supported by the fund. Now, in August 2023, that's a year ago, the RAF launched a comprehensive road safety program for learners and youth. This program involved educating learners in primary schools, special schools and high schools about road safety through talks, industrial theatre performances and road safety simulations. Now, the event will be held in Durban tomorrow. Durban tomorrow. If you need to know more, contact the RAF on 087 820 and then 1111. So 4 ones, 087 820 1111. Or go to the website raf.co.za.
You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Well, it's not a news story, but once again, the former Eskom CEO Andre de Ruyter has warned that South Africa's perceived hostility towards the USA may have dire financial and economic consequences for our country. This in the context of South Africa's, foreign policy issues. De Ruyter was the keynote speaker at the PSG Financial Services Annual Conference. Now, the question is he right? What does it mean? What exactly is our position officially with regard to the USA? Let's try and understand all of this with Gilbert Kadiagala, the Professor of International Relations at Wits University and Director of the African Center for the Study of the United States. Prof. Kadiagala, you're live on the National Pulse. Hi.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Right. So, firstly, a lot has happened between South Africa and the USA. How would you describe our current relationship?
No, the relationship was an up and down trajectory because from last year, really a downward trajectory because since last year, the U.S. has been complaining that South Africa is not, quote unquote, towing the line. That means South Africa aligning with countries that are historically hostile to the U.S., particularly Russia and China. And South Africa has tried to defend that position by saying it wants to diversify its multilateral relationships. And it doesn't need to be beholden to the traditional ties with Western countries. So the U.S. doesn't take that very, very kindly because they feel that, for instance, a part of the AGOA agreement is that African countries should not be aligned to countries that have been antagonistic to U.S. interests over the years. So South Africa is already a member of AGOA, and the U.S. feels that, in fact, it's not living to those expectations. And it still wants to broaden its economic relations with Russia and China.
Okay, let's talk about the AGOA agreement. What is it? Why is that important for us?
The African Growth and Opportunity Act is a trade agreement that offers preferences to African countries into U.S. markets. And it has been very critical for South Africa because some of the products from South Africa, including Mercedes-Benz and wines, go to the U.S. market pretty much duty-free. And so it's an important agreement that signals that the U.S. wanted to promote Africa's engagement into the global economy. And one way to do that is to give them trade preferences. So this agreement is now going to lapse very soon, and there have been discussions about renewing it. And if they renew it for African countries, is South Africa going to lose out? Or is it going to remain a member of the AGOA? Some people within the ANC feel that, in fact, it's important to maintain that agreement because it helps South Africa's businesses and it strengthens South Africa's economy. But there is another faction that thinks, AGOA is useless.
So can South Africa do both? Can they, in terms of its foreign affairs or foreign relations policy, can South Africa be, for example, critical of Israel and the attacks on that region of Palestine called Gaza on the one hand, and yet at the same time still do business with the USA, as they are attempting to do, and they are doing right now?
Yeah, it's a very difficult path because what it says is that you have to choose what the writers call the difference between friendships and interests. The interests are mostly with the United States and Western Europe, but the friendships are with countries with parties like the Palestinians and so on, Russia and China. So the line between friendships and interests is really difficult for South Africa. But I think it's been done since the end of apartheid. I think South Africa has maintained very good relations with Western countries at the same time as it has built a relationship with these other countries like Russia and China. So the question is just how you diversify the relationship without burning bridges. I think that is a problem.
Well, if that's the $1 million question, then what's the $1 million answer to that question, Prof?
The answer is that you can do both, but you also have to take the risks of alienating some of your partners. If you want to play that dance, then there are big risks, and you have to be prepared for that.
Now, De Ruyter, and I'm quoting him, is saying about that relationship may have dire financial and economic consequences. Is that an overstatement? Dire financial and economic consequences for the country?
I don't think it's an exaggeration, because the point since last year has been if South Africa loses its economic AGOA preferences, for instance, it is going to have a big impact even on jobs here in South Africa. And we can't underestimate the importance of jobs, particularly in an economy that has been hemorrhaging jobs.
Does anything suggest we may lose that AGOA agreement? What I'm saying, countries, they talk, they argue, they have public spats, but they somehow shake hands. Any chance that we may lose that agreement?
I suspect that they are not going to lose the agreement. But again, down the road, you never know. You never know. Because the issue is that I think the U.S. at this point is prepared to tolerate South Africa's dalliance, I think, with countries like Russia and China. But again, Congress is actually the one that makes all these decisions. Mm-hmm. And there are people in Congress who really don't like South Africa by virtue of its dilly-dallying on the U.S. South Africa relations.
And that's where we will leave it. Prof. Gilbert Kajagala, Professor of International Relations at WITS, Director of the African Center for the Study of the United States. In fact, we'll get another take on that issue perhaps later on. And you may also talk to me about that and tell me what you think about would the USA in fact be losers? It might be naive in even asking that question. Something for you to consider. Let's get the news headlines now with Madupi.
Very much, Ashraf, and a very good afternoon. In your headlines, the National Council of Provinces has failed to approve the Basic Laws Amendment Bill due to procedural errors. The provincial executive of the African Congress for Transformation in Mpumalanga has resigned en masse, and the International Relations Minister Naledi Pandor has slammed Israel for banning the international broadcaster Al Jazeera. I'll be back with a full news update at 4.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon, motorists on the way to Pretoria, stuck in a bit of a queue there between Brockfontein Interchange and the Jean Avenue exit, so it's the N14 northbound. It's a crash probably about halfway through between Brockfontein and Jean, and it's actually quite a heavy queue that's forming up into that one. Roadworks on the Mike 1 south at Smith Street in Braamfontein, that lane closure still there. Traffic starting to park back as far as Houghton Drive. Durban's N2 northbound has been busy for the last couple of hours on the run through Spaghetti Junction up towards Westwood Mall, up through the roadworks, and behind that there's quite a backlog of traffic coming from Sherwood on the N3, very slowly on the ramp to the N2. Real problems getting off the N3 and turning into that N2 north. Also a collision between Umhlanga and Gateway, or between Gateway and Kwamashu on the N2 driving south to Durban. Cape Town, heavy pressure on the N2 out of town today. It's roadworks in front of Khayelitsha that are still there. Only one lane open before Spine Road, and traffic is parking back beyond the R300. The M5 looking quite slow with some queuing pressure there, moving from the N2 highway up towards the M1 Kubo. Get a change, add a collision on Marine Drive at Loxton Road, and that's causing a backlog both ways in that central part of Milnerton. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This is SAFM Sports with Doming Kapele.
Right here to me, another day. Let's talk athletics.
A very good afternoon to you, Ashraf, and our listeners. Yes, we start things off with athletics. Athletics South Africa have announced plans for a pre-Olympic training camp in France for the men's 4x100 meter and 4x400 meter relay teams. The training camp will take place 2 weeks before the Paris Olympic Games. SA 100 meter record holder Akani Simbini and 400 meter record holder Wade van Niekerk guided the respective relay teams to qualifying for the Olympics, and ASA looks to make sure that the teams are at their best come the Games. The Olympics are set to take place from the 26th of July to the 11th of August in Paris, with the track and field competition starting on the 1st of August at the Olympic Stadium. Then in football, Orlando Pirates head coach Jose Rivero says that now that they have reduced the gap between them and Stellenbosch FC to 1 point, it's time to pile on the pressure. With 3 games to go, Pirates are on 49 points and Rivero expects his team to go all out for the second CAF Champions League spot. Elsewhere, following Paris Saint-Germain crashing out of the Champions League last night, the big question is, where will Kylian Mbappe go? In February, Mbappe told PSG that he would be leaving on a free transfer when his contract expires, and Real Madrid are firm favourites to sign him, but no detail of Mbappe's final destination have yet been confirmed. And former Los Blancos president Ramon Calderon says that it would be good to have Mbappe at the Bernabeu.
Well, I wish he could come. First step has been taken in the fact that he didn't extend his contract with PSG, but I don't have a personal knowledge. I suppose there are negotiations about that. Not only money, it's also the intention of the player. Always the great players go where they want to go. I suppose for him, as I told Cristiano when I signed him, Real Madrid is going to give him a lot. It's true that he will come to help the team with the goals, with the way he plays, but Real Madrid gives to the players a lot too. I think it will be a good combination. He will be able to get personal and collective awards playing with Real Madrid, as Cristiano did, and other players, big players we've had. So he will be really a great reinforcement if he finally comes to our club.
Meanwhile, the former head of Spanish Football Federation, Luis Rubiales, will stand trial for sexual assault over his kissing of Women's World Cup winner Jenny Hermoso without her consent. A Spanish High Court judge said Rubiales was also facing one charge of coercion. The scandal overshadowed a historic moment for Spain's women's team, which at the time was celebrating its first ever World Cup win on the 20th of August 2023. Then in cricket, Mumbai Indians captain Hardik Pandya's captaincy has come under more scrutiny after the heavyweights became the first team to be knocked out of the IPL playoff race. They got knocked out after Sunrisers Hyderabad hammered Lucknow Super Giants by 10 wickets. Mumbai are 9th in the 10-team table on 8 points after only 4 wins in 12 matches. And senior players have expressed concerns to the coaching staff about a lack of team spirit in the locker room, and they say it's because of Hardrick's leadership style. Ending things off with women in sports, a 4-time champion on the Women's Tennis Association circuit, Camila Giorgi, has retired at the tender age of 32. Now, there's no personal announcement on her retirement, although Italy's federation has confirmed that she has hung up her racket up for good. The Italian had reached a career high of number 26 in the WTA rankings and reached the quarterfinals at Wimbledon in 2018. She also won the 2021 Canadian Open title, one of WTA's most prestigious tournaments, to claim the biggest title of her career. So the big question is, why did she retire? And no one knows why she retired, because 32 is quite a tender age.
Is it a tender age? And in different sports, it varies, right?
Yeah, it varies, but I feel like she was still on her rise, especially in tennis, and she was doing fairly well. So no one knows why she retired. She didn't say anything. We just wait for an announcement.
Well,
from
in
her
gymnastics,
side.
I think if you're 21, you're over the hill. Generally in tennis, they may say now even 30 for most people would be done. But if you come to football, which I must just throw this in, I think they got two players for Real Madrid over 35, 36, and they call fine. They're all playing in another Champions League final. Did you watch that game last night?
I did.
Oh,
My goodness. And I was happy because I've always known that Real Madrid will fight back hard. Well, that's it. It is a wrap from my side for now. I'll have more in the next hour for SAFM Sport. I'm Dumeng Kapele.
Come test drive the new Ford Territory, the family SUV with a 1.8-litre EcoBoost engine that is both powerful and fuel efficient. Get yours at launch prices from only 590,000 Rand, including an optional service plan for a limited time only. Get to your nearest Ford dealer and test drive the new Ford Territory today. TNCs apply.
Durban is yet again ready to welcome thousands of delegates and buyers who will be attending the Africa Travel Indaba at the Durban ICC from 13th to 16th May. The Indaba, that attracts delegates from across the globe, is the continent's leading travel showpiece. Hosting events of this magnitude continues to position Durban as a business and holiday destination of choice. Durban Tourism, together with community tourism organizations and local businesses, are eager to showcase that indeed Durban has more to offer. Durban is on the move. Join us at stand DEC 1G50. Durban is Africa's leading festival and event destination according to the World Travel Awards 2023.
At Specsavers, we're committed to offering affordable and professional eye care. That's why we're offering 1,500 Rand worth of savings with our winter promotion. Get a free frame up to the value of 1,500 Rand or use the 1,500 Rand on one of our leading lens enhancements. To qualify, simply purchase a comprehensive eye examination and prescription frame and lenses. Book online or call your nearest store today. Specsavers for affordable eye care and a whole lot more. T's and C's apply.
S3 brings you thought-provoking and informative documentaries Thursdays at 9 p.m. The TikTok Effect sees the BBC's disinformation correspondent investigate the truth behind TikTok's meteoric success. With over 1 billion monthly users, TikTok has taken the world by storm. Mariana Spring talks to ex-employees, providing our first real insight into what happens inside the company. The TikTok Effect airs Thursday the 9th of May at 9 p.m. only on S3. Channel your best drama with BBC Primetime, only on S3. Open up.
X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
Right, we're going to speak about crime in South Africa pretty shortly, but I did speak to you earlier about Japan and what is it about that culture that just gets them just serving all the time, an absolutely spotless, orderly nation. And very importantly, what can we learn from it and what can we emulate, perhaps, okay? Of course, some people are saying, come on, don't dream. But let's get some thoughts on this. Bradley calling in. Hi, Bradley, in Alberton.
Hi, Ashraf. Compliments. Sorry, great show. But just an observation on the Japanese.
Yeah.
So if you look at the early childhood development centers, what we would term as nursery school, at that age, these kids are taught as part of the syllabus in terms of you've got to clean up, you've got to make sure that where you work is all clean, squeaky clean. And as such, many of the schools do not employ cleaners because from that age, these kids are taught. Hence, the example that you gave when the Japanese had to clean up the stadium, they didn't blink an eyelid to clean the stadium because it's ingrained in everything that they do.
Yeah.
And that is something that we need to consider within South Africa, because if you taught me in high school or after high school that I need to clean up, I think at that point it is a little bit late.
Well, I think you're spot on. I mean, like, for example, and I'm just looking at like a junior sports team example. When kids play, rugby, cricket, football at junior level, no matter what the game is and the parents arguing during the game, at the end they'll say, shake hands, shake hands. So it's ingrained in that culture, but we just don't do that in really important things, isn't it?
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Okay. Good call. Thanks for that.
Great.
Thanks for that, Bradley.
Great.
Well, there you are. So, okay, if they're doing it at early childhood development, then why can't we do that at early childhood development? Because my point was that they don't just do it as a volunteer campaign for an event. It's the culture. Jock in KZN, hi.
Good day, Ashraf. How are you?
Yeah, good talking to you. I'm very well. Right. What's your point, Jock?
My point was, I'm going to go back to the burning of the flag and then also about the resurrection of what we need in terms of our constitution or the people that are the youth of the country. Or
Okay,
the future leaders.
short and sharp, please, right? Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the resurrection, the burning of the flag will also represent, for me, it represents the resurrection of a new beginning, of a new culture where the politicians or the leaders are held responsible by themselves. They are accountable. They come forward with what they've done wrong or right, and that we hold them accountable as the people of the country, knowing that our vote actually changes the landscape of the politician as well as our country. So it starts right from the beginning in terms of what your previous call is true, but also that our leaders need to also have introspect and retrospect that we do need a resurrection of this country where South Africa is great in terms of stealing something from Donald Trump, but to make our country great again or to the best of its ability or better than what it was.
So you first need to destroy or burn and then resurrect. Okay, got that.
I wouldn't say to destroy or resurrect, but I'm saying if you look at the amount of anger that's around the world for Palestine in terms of supporting them, it comes from a place of I wouldn't say violence, but it comes from almost like a resentment. I mean, the country, we all resent people that are stealing and that get away with murder or get away with anything else. Yeah. We as a common person don't have that funds or legal representation to pull the court for 10 years, 12 years and keep ourselves out.
All right. Got that. Thanks for that. Thanks for that call. From KZN Jock, appreciate that. I love the diversity, male, female, young, old, first-time callers, all of you calling in. In fact, just a quick one, South Africans are not patriotic. They vandalize, steal, throw things out of windows about the construction in George. I think we must also get in touch with Nigeria, where these things are common. What are the results of this falling building? Comes from Madoda. Right, let's talk about crime, and we'll take further calls later too.
You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
So, I don't know how you're going to interpret this. Is this good news? Is South Africa as a country finally winning the war against crime? I'm a skeptic, but Operation Chanela has yielded remarkable results. 71,000 operations conducted nationwide, and the initiative has led to the arrest of close to 600,000 criminals. There's even more to that, but let's get further analysis on that with Dr. Chris de Kock, who was a crime expert, former head of the Crime Information Analysis Center. Dr. de Kock, appreciate your time. You're on the National Pulse.
Good afternoon, and good afternoon to the listeners.
And there's not a day that our pulse rate doesn't race when it comes to issues of crime. For everyone listening right now, we all feel it, okay? So you have good news for us.
Well, I mean, I've seen the successes of Operation Chanela, and it seems that the operation as such is quite effective. If I can mention some, and then I'll do a bit of I will say a few more things about these stats. But if you look at let's look at real crimes or crimes, serious crimes. If we look at murder, they've arrested 6,652 people during the past year during Operation Chanela. Those are people, suspects in murder cases. Then attempted murder, 5,010 suspects. Rape, 9,536 suspects. And we can carry on. When it comes to things like motor vehicle theft, it's much less because that's a difficult one. You know, either you have to arrest them in a roadblock or you have to arrest them on when they are stealing the vehicle. So it's only about 2,330.
Well, look, I mean, I'm just going to say, I mean, the numbers don't mean too much to us listening because it's just like it's all over the place in terms of, you know, people can't comprehend. What they want to comprehend is what are the trends? Are the trends downwards, upwards in percentages?
Look, if you look at our crime, I mean, we will have to wait till I think next week I think somewhere next week the latest quarterly crime figures will be released, and then we can have a better idea. But over the past 2 years, it didn't look good at all. I mean, our murder rate increased dramatically over the past 2 years.
Yeah.
It's now a little bit on a very high level. It has stabilized a little bit according to the first 3 quarters that was released by the minister. So we will see next week or the week after that somewhere in the next 2 weeks, I see they're going to release. But when we look at this figures which are linked to, or which is linked to Operation Chanela, it seems that this operation is paying off. It gives results. I mean, if you arrest those numbers, 6,652 for murder, at least you will influence the murder figure eventually. It will give you a lower murder figure somewhere.
What's so unique about Operation Chanela that hasn't been done before?
Well, it's I won't say similar operations wasn't done before over the past 30 years or so, but this one is quite multidisciplinary. It's police, it's metro police, it's even members of the community, and it also involves home affairs, departments like that. So it is quite extensive. I have attended one or two of these roadblocks, and I must say I'm very impressed with it. Maybe there's a little bit of a bias against foreigners, because when they check the documentation and they find a foreigner, they will arrest that foreigner if the documentation is not in order. But some people will say that's a good thing. Others will say, no, that's maybe not such a good thing. But I think this operation is really giving us some results.
All right. So therefore, to answer this question that I said at the outset, is South Africa finally winning the war against crime? How would you respond to that?
No, I won't say at this stage we are winning the war. We are winning maybe this operation, having successes, but we are not at this stage winning the war against crime. There was a time in our history, 2003 to 2012, that 10 years basically. In that decade, we were really winning the war against crime. For example, murders went down from nearly 25,000 to 15,000 in that 10 years, while the population was actually growing. But then after 2012, we have lost the plot. And I think we have negative figures on basically all crimes, and especially murder and attempted murder, since 2012.
Okay, so any sense of euphoria and getting our pulses racing for the right reasons have quickly diminished in light of your final answer. Dr. Chris de Kock, thanks for your time. Much appreciated.
Okay.
There was a crime expert, Dr. de Kock, and former head of the Crime Information Analysis Center. Do you know much about Operation Chanela, and what can you share with us about what you understand by that, and does it actually work? Now, the other big issue, besides taking your calls, and I want to get a range of calls on a range of issues around Japan, around the building issues in George as well, is this, right? Equal education. Just how equal is it in our country? Right after this.
Getting more money into your pockets has never been this simple and exciting. With SABC's new Simple Watch and Win game show, you can get more Zaga in your pockets. Catch more Zaga every weekday on SABC1 at 9 p.m. You could win your share of 50,000 Rand. All you have to do to win is give the correct answer for the day. Just dial *120 *332# to register and play. The cost is R1.50 per minute. You could win big with more Zaga. Only on SABC1.
Hello, Your Choice Hotline. Hi, I need you to help me make a choice.
Well, with Ford, you get to make your own choices. Like on brand new Ford Ranger XL, XLT or Wildtrak Supercabs from only $7,999 per month with no deposit needed. There's a flexible deal for every Supercab at your nearest Ford dealership today. Your Ford, your choice. T&Cs apply.
Frank Chikane was detained, tortured and poisoned by the apartheid government, but he never stopped fighting for freedom. In 1994, he flew in a helicopter over the endless lines of South Africans voting for the very first time and said afterwards that what he saw was unimaginable. On May the 29th, which is 20 days away, the Kagiso Trust's Remember Me initiative encourages South Africans to honour Chikane's struggle by exercising the right he fought so hard for, the right to vote. So, #Remember Me.
Ashraf Garda on the National Pulse.
Well, I tell you what, the right to vote has to somehow tie in with the issue of how does that change the quality of our education. Huge concerns about just where we are and the massive discrepancies around our education in our country. With that in mind, Equal Education, they are undertaking a protest march, I understand, to Parliament tomorrow. Let's find out why and what's the bottom line to all of this with Ati Zanka. Ati, appreciate your time. You're on the National Pulse. In fact, we're going to connect with Ati. We'll connect in just a moment. Let me just tell you, by the way, lots of people have commented, and here's one on the issue of orderliness rather.
Hey, Ashraf. Do you want to leave? Nice question. Do you want to live in a champion community? I suppose we all do. We all do. And, those sense of orderliness in countries such as Rwanda, Singapore, Japan that you spoke of is truly admirable. But this is the thing about us. Just like you cannot look after a property that you are renting, that you do not own, as well as you would have looked after such property if you were the owner, realizing that you want growth in its value and all those things. It is the same when it comes to communities in this country. The people of this country do not own this country. Perhaps let's start there. Thank you, Ashraf. Nice show.
No, do you not think people see a vested... I understand there's a literal ownership and there's ownership as invested interest in the country. Do you really think that people think that way when they spend all their time in this country, never mind what your ID document tells you? I tend to disagree with you about the last part. However, let's get to the issue of equal education. Ati Zanka with me, Equal Education Community Leader. You're live on the National Pulse. Hello.
Good day, sir. How are you?
Thank you. I'm good indeed. Right. You have a protest coming up tomorrow, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Why?
So there is a number of issues that we have been trying to address with the Department of Basic Education and several provincial education departments. And leading up to the upcoming election, it is of utmost importance that we continue having those conversations. And we have the people who cannot actually put an X on a ballot box lead those conversations. And these are conversations around the issue of education, of course. There's a number of issues pertaining to education that don't seem to get fixed anytime soon. So it's a matter of importance that we do it, and it's very important that we do it now.
So perhaps, highlight for me maybe in just 4 bullet point one-liners, what are the biggest issues around education that so troubles equal education?
Okay. Well, there's a huge number, but to limit it to 4, there's the issue of infrastructure, which is probably the biggest issue in the country. If you remember, in 2013, there was a document for minimum norms and standards for public school infrastructure published by the department. And most things on that document are literally that, things on paper. And 11 years later, there still not has been complete implementation of the things based on the timelines that they set for themselves. There's also this issue of safety in schools. The previous speaker was speaking about safety in general, but and crime, and it's sad that there is such a problem in schools also. Another thing I think is a leading issue is the overcrowding in schools, because overcrowding is such a huge thing, and it does affect teaching and learning. And there's also learners not getting admitted into schools, which is also another big irk for the schooling community. So you said 4, so I'll leave it at that.
All right. Now, having said that, you protesting in Parliament to what end? Meaning, is it simply awareness, or you actually want to effect change?
Our whole thing is to effect change. We want to have our children, our brothers, our sisters, going to better schools than we went to. So our protest to Parliament tomorrow is us submitting a memorandum of demand to the standing government, but also it is a cry to whoever might be in the upcoming government that these are the things that the learners in schools actually need, and these are the things you guys should be looking at leading up to the upcoming election.
Because here's the thing, right? Is it accurate to say that besides South Africa as a country, South Africa's where we're lagging behind in global competitiveness, South Africa's education system also lags behind in global competitiveness. Am I right, or have I got that wrong?
Definitely, because there's a range of issues in our education system, even except the ones I've aforementioned. There's also things like our curriculum speaking to a certain group of learners, and not the entire number of learners in schools, which is also problematic. And also there's this thing of learners not being in adequate spaces to learn that will definitely lead to them not being able to succeed in the way they're supposed to, and they can't compete then in the global market of things. So it's a very big issue.
Why do you think, the issue of sorting out, and I say sorting out our education, I've heard that for 10, 15, 20 years. Why do you think that we haven't shifted at all?
I won't lie and say there hasn't been any shift, because this is not the first action we've moved as equal education. There has been a shift, but now the problem is the shifts are too tiny. Like, it's baby steps, two babies crawling, so to speak. And there has been a lot of leeway and a lot of time given to the government to fix these issues. But unfortunately, I joined equal education in 2013. I was a learner then in high school. I went to varsity, and then I came back to work for the organization, and people are still having pretty much the same conversations and the same problems.
Well, that's my point. That's my point. So, in terms of your bullet points, you talk about, education as a public good, reading crisis, safety of learners, school admissions, all the things that we know, overcrowding, procurement, and funding, and we know all of that, right? My take on this is that, until a township school does not resemble a suburban school, then that deficit, let's call it the Gini coefficient of our schooling system, is as wide as ever. And we know when you're changing that right now, isn't it? We can't narrow it.
Definitely. There's a saying that goes, none of us is free until we're all free. We can't have children who are expected to write the same paper at the end of the year, having conditions that are so far apart. There's a school that doesn't even have a roof for learners in the classroom, and then you expect those learners to perform the same way as learners with air conditioning in classrooms. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, there's a huge gap of inequality, and yet the same result is expected out of both learners, which is completely absurd.
So if you, in 15 seconds, if there's one thing that you think needs to be fixed immediately, what would that be?
Infrastructure.
Infrastructure. Okay, got that. Thank you for your time, and best wishes with tomorrow and the awareness around equal education for all from Ati Zankla, Equal Education Community Leader. They will be having a march to Parliament, I understand, tomorrow for all the right reasons. So I gather lots more to talk about, including nurses and many other issues that affect you, including voting. But let's get to the news now. It's 4 o'clock with Madupi.
Very much, Ashraf. The top story is Asawa. The NCOP fails to approve the Bela bill, and the ACT's Mpumalanga leadership resigns. A very good afternoon. The National Council of Provinces has failed to approve the Basic Laws Amendment Bill due to procedural errors. The DA complained that the bill was not published on the announcement tablings and committee reports of Parliament as per the requirements. The bill's main objective is to make significant amendments to the SA Schools Act of 1996 and the Educators Employment Act of 1998. The NCOP was meant to vote on it today before sending it to the President to sign it into law. However, following legal advice, NCOP Deputy Chair Sylvia Lucas ruled that the matter be deferred to the next sitting for finalization.
It seems as if procedurally things have not been, after there was agreement on the content matters. It's just a procedural issue, and that is on the issue of making sure that the report are put onto the ATC, onto the announcements, tablings and committees report. Apparently it has not happened like that. I would now rule that this matter be ATC'd and be dealt with in the next House sitting.
Parliament's Human Settlements Committee has offered condolences to the families affected by the collapsed building in George in the Western Cape. Chairperson Machweni Semenya was speaking during a sitting of the National Assembly today. A construction site collapsed on Monday, leading to a number of people trapped under the rubble. 8 people have died and some 44 others remain unaccounted for. Semenya offered sympathy to their loved ones.
Please allow me, on behalf of the Portfolio Committee on Human Settlement, to send our heartfelt condolences to the families that have lost their loved ones in the collapsed building in George. We also hope for a swift recovery for the hospitalized workers. There is no better way to honor the lives of the deceased workers in that collapsed building than for this August House to approve the Housing Consumer Protection Bill, which we are tabling today.
Police say a 39-year-old suspect has been arrested on a charge of assault with the intent to cause grievous bodily harm at Milnerton in Cape Town. This follows the stabbing of 2 women aged 21 and 20 at the weekend. Police spokesperson FC van Wyk says a group of friends arranged for a Bolt driver to pick them up in Monte Vista to be taken to Dunoon. He says an argument ensued when the driver did not take them to their requested destination. Van Wyk says the man allegedly stabbed the victims when they wanted to get out.
He will appear in the Cape Town Magistrates Court on Friday the 10th of May on a charge of assault with the intent to do grievous bodily harm. Investigations continue.
A look now at your election news. The provincial executive of the African Congress for Transformation in Mpumalanga has resigned en masse. The provincial leadership of Aces Magashule's party accuses the national leadership of not funding the party's campaign ahead of the elections later this month. Makaza Kantuli, who was the chairperson of the ACT in the province, says ANC members are being promised strategic positions in ACT after the polls. He says they were expected to fund the campaign from their own pockets.
The issue of the cadre deployment. This is a new political party in South Africa that is contesting a very complex election for 2024. But you ask yourself, where does this cadre deployment coming from? And secondly, we were told that there are other ANC members that they are still in the ANC, but after election they will be placed in the strategic position within the party itself. So those are some of the things that become problematic to us as Mpumalanga leadership, and we didn't have the support from the national office or from our president Esma Khashule.
And International Relations Minister Naledi Pandor has slammed Israel for banning the international broadcaster Al Jazeera. She was delivering a lecture at the University of Joburg in honor of the slain Palestinian journalist Shireen Abu Akleh. She has called on the Israeli government not to interfere with media freedom.
Just imagine if South Africa were to ban the SABC. The whole media world would be on us. But what are they saying today about what Israel has done to Al Jazeera? It is vital, I believe, that academics and academic institutions devote more time to this decline in freedom of expression and to the growing threat to it. The decline began well before the advent of embedded journalists, but it has lately snowballed, and we need to be very worried.
The top story at 4 o'clock, the National Council of Provinces has failed to approve the Basic Laws Amendment Bill due to procedural errors. For SAFM News,
and coming up in your sports this hour, CAF and UCT partnership promises to produce world-class leaders and administrators, and Australia's head says that IPL form no guarantee for World Cup success. More details at 4:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. If you're on your way to Pretoria, there's a big queue on the N14, the Ben Schumann Highway. A crash pretty much halfway between the N1 Brockfontein interchange and Jean Avenue. That traffic backed through Brockfontein and back towards the old Joburg exit on the M1 North. So that's pretty heavy. Delays as well on Joburg's Mike 1 today. A crash going up to Grayston Drive. So that's quite slow coming through from Houghton. And that left lane closure on the Mike 1 south around Smith Street, backing traffic from Houghton Drive. And that's likely just to increase in size of that queue as you come from Melrose and Houghton on your way slowly towards the Crown Interchange. Roadworks on the south coast of KZN, the N2 going south down towards the Mansam Toti. The N2 going north through Spaghetti Junction's been heavy for the last few hours. Queues up towards Westwood Mall. Behind that, the N3 from Felix Clamini. Very heavy to get through Spaghetti Junction and turn into that N2 north. That's quite a backlog. Cape Town crash on the M1 service road, beg your pardon, it's on the main carriageway near Sable Road. So the N1 out of town through Kubo Interchange out towards the N7 Highway Bridge. That's quite slow. And the M5 is heavier than normal, queuing up from around Clifffontein Road in Rondebosch all the way through to the Coburg Interchange. With your traffic updates, I'm Rob Byrne.
The University Registrar and Secretary to Convocation, Dr. Joel Baloy, cordially invites all members of the University of Venda Convocation to attend the AGM on Saturday, 11 May 2024 in Polokwane, Merupa Hotel at 10:30. The AGM will consider the Vice-Chancellor State of Campus Report, the President of Convocation Report, and amendments to the Constitution of the Convocation. To RSVP and confirm attendance, please visit www.univen.ac.za/announcements or contact Mr. Mashuda Ramarebo on 060-906-1902.
Which is the best way to reach success? Is it best to go alone, so you can go fast? Or for many to go together, so they can go far? What if you need to go fast and far? At RMB, we believe the best way to success doesn't make you choose when both are possible. When you need a thoughtful solution for financial complexity, there are only 3 letters you need to know. RMB, a division of First Rand Bank Limited, an authorized FSP and registered credit provider.
Things are really heating up in the Tastemaster kitchen this week as we enter our first elimination challenge.
This week, we celebrate our African pride and see who will rise to the occasion.
10 minutes left and I'm still doing my curd.
Things can go wrong very quickly.
What I'm doing to try and finish on time is pray.
Join us 7 p.m. on SABC2 every Tuesday.
Repeats on Wednesdays at 2 p.m. and Sundays at 4 p.m.
See you there.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
Tell you what, 2 things have got my pulses racing just right now. The issue about the point about Japan, and that point brought up by the caller from Alberton, it was, who said that it's early childhood learning and how they are taught to be incredibly disciplined about cleaning up the spaces around them. So they do that as a matter or a fact of life in everything they do. Certainly got me thinking, because I've made the point to say, how can we not emulate that in South Africa? What stops us? Really seriously, what stops us? Within our own spaces, within our own communities. And I welcome your thoughts on that issue. WhatsApp, voice notes, or text 0614 104 107, or you can tweet it out and just tag us on SFM Radio, on the X platform, as well as on Facebook, as well, using the hashtag The National Pulse, right? And the other one is the issue of the USA that we spoke about earlier on, and the implications of South Africa's relations with the USA that breaks down, as many suggested it has already, particularly over the different views around the handling and the dealing with Israel and Palestine. What implications does it have for our country, our economy? And the third one is the issue of education and equal education, and just how unequal our education is in our country. All those thoughts, your opinions matter. Oh yeah, the fourth one, crime, about any chance of easing off in our crime stats. Doesn't seem to be working at all, not at all, doesn't look like it. And the fourth one, just to tell you, Herman Mashaba, he comes up as my guest in the weekly feature that we have with the election monitor, the head or the leader of Action SA. What would you like to be asking him? I'll certainly put that to him later on. But first things first, and it links very much to the issue of the elections and political parties. You may be aware that we spoke about it yesterday, in fact, to the team from Outer, about the Electoral Matters Amendment Bill being signed into law. And it's got two parts. One is to allow independent candidates to get into the fold in terms of funding, which may be a good news story. But the other is the issue of the declarations of funding, which is a big issue, isn't it? Now, understand that issue, the legislation around that issue has been stood over until next week, pending further consultations between parties. What do we read into all of that? My Vote Counts has an opinion on that. We speak to their senior researcher at My Vote Counts, Joel Brackman. Joel, you're live with the National Pulse. Hi.
Hi, thank you for having me. Nice to chat.
Thank you. Right. So where does My Vote Count stand on this issue regarding the Electoral Matters Amendment Bill?
Sure. So there are various parts of the Electoral Matters Amendment Bill, which, as you mentioned, is now an act, right? It was brought into being to change various pieces of legislation to bring independent candidates into the political fold, which was necessary. But what it also did is it made changes to the Political Party Funding Act. And very worryingly, it has made changes to the regulations around the disclosure limit, which up until now was 100,000 Rand, and the upper donation limit per year, which was 15 million Rand per party, per donor. Now, for the past few months, as the bill has been working its way through Parliament, My Vote Count, other civil society organizations, some opposition parties, the President's own National Anti-Corruption Advisory Council have all been warning that the way that the bill was written, it would create a lacuna in the law, this gap in the law, that we are currently sitting with right now. That as of now, after the President commenced this act yesterday, there are currently no regulations around the limit. And that is very worrying.
Okay, so up to now, there was a limit of 15 million and 100,000. You're saying at this point in time, 3 weeks or 20 days, in fact, before the next election, there is no limit. So somebody could come in with a late delivery and just up that limit from 15 to 50 million if they choose, right?
Right. So that is our reading of it. That's our the legal opinion that we've got. And until such time as the National Assembly passes a resolution and then the President makes a proclamation on the limit, we will be in this limbo.
Okay, now, so why are we in this limbo? Meaning the fact that it's been stood over, the issue of that motion to address that gap in party funding has been stood over until next week. I mean, what's the motivation to have it stood over?
So I do not understand why the National Assembly didn't just pass it today. If you look at the actual order paper, it is written there that that until this happens, there's a gap in the law. And the proposed amount are the same. It's still keeping it at R1 million and 100,000 Rand. That's what the National Assembly had proposed presenting to the President. So I cannot for the life of me understand why this has been delayed until next week. I don't know what further consultations need to happen, but this has really opened a door that should never have been opened.
Now, where you sit, I mean, your organization's name says it all, My Vote Counts, but my money also counts. How important is this issue about money and political funding of parties and what it may construe and imply beyond, not just in an election to get votes, but beyond that?
So, I mean, I think as South Africa, we, as a country, we have a very recent experience of the problems that you have when private interest, private money can take a hold of your politics. And, the state capture, the environment in which that emerged was one where there were no laws around party funding, because the PPFA only came into being in 2021. So it's really concerning, as you mentioned, a few weeks after the most contested election in 30 years, that we have a situation now where technically someone could come in and, buy a party. They could donate whatever amount and we would be none the wiser.
What can you do? I mean, besides creating the type of awareness that you're doing right now, I mean, you're not in Parliament. What can you do?
So, I mean, we are exploring our legal options, and we are hoping that there is a way to essentially put in to stop this gap, to close this gap until such time as Parliament does its job and the President then makes the proclamation. But the feeling yesterday was that things might be properly aligned today, and if Parliament had passed the resolution, then the expectation would have been that the President would have signed it fairly soon afterwards. But now this delay has made, this period of at least, 4 or 5 days, maybe longer. We don't know.
Who does it suit at this point in time, the delay?
All the political parties, because they won't have to tell us where they're getting money from for this period of time.
Would it favor the bigger parties, or am I likely to get more money?
Well, I mean, that's possible. I mean, usually the larger parties can attract larger donations, but if you look at some of the opposition parties have been threatening to go to court, but not on this particular matter. They are concerned about the proportionality split, which has also changed some of the things around the expansion of the president. But to be honest, I mean, political parties don't necessarily always want to tell us where they're getting their funding from. To get this law into effect in the first place took many, many years and litigation, and the political moment at the time sort of forced it. But it's something which parties have always been pushing back again.
I mean, in conclusion, then, what for you then is the biggest concern? I mean, we've discussed a lot of things. I get that, but beyond what we've spoken about, like when you end this conversation, it's like our biggest concern really is this. What would that be?
So the entire reason why this legislation came into being is because we have a right to access information to make political choices. That's essentially what the Constitutional Court judgment said. And by being in this situation, we are really opening the door for private interests to come in this little window period and take a hold of things. And we're not trying to be conspiratorial or make up, but there was no need for this to happen. We should never have reached this point.
But it certainly has. So we have it, and let's see what matters, what happens coming out of it. My Vote Counts is the organization, the senior researcher at the organization. My Vote Counts is Joel Brachman. Thanks for your time. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
And we're going to certainly keep our fingers on that pulse with regards to that issue. Beyond that, your opinions on My Vote Counts and the issue of party funding at this point in time. So if the minimums was 100,000 and then 15 million to the 100,000 had to be declared to a maximum donation of 15 million at this point in time, it doesn't apply. At this point in time, 3 weeks before election, because of what's happened. Any opinion you have on that, voice notes, text, or you can WhatsApp with voice notes or text, right, to a WhatsApp number 0614 104 107.
X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
Right, let's get some calls. Errol has a view on Japan. Hi, Errol.
Hi, Ashraf, can you hear me?
I certainly can. Go ahead.
Last time I forgot to welcome you back. But anyway, better late than never.
Well, let me give you a chance. You're on the road on the red carpet. Do so. Thank you. Much appreciated.
In 1978, my mom and dad went to Japan. I always wondered why they went there instead of like Australia and New Zealand. But anyway, they were so impressed with the Japanese. They said the supermarkets everywhere were so clean. And the people spoke to you so softly. You had to strain your ears, to hear them, what they were saying. Everything was really quiet there. And, they were very impressed with Japan. I mean, if you threw something on the street, you were arrested, instead of in the bin.
Yeah, I mean, I know that, and that happens in Singapore as well. I think in Rwanda too, but I don't know if I can manage the quietness, but the orderliness, yeah, I mean, that's cool, yeah?
Yeah.
All right, Errol.
I just want to tell you, my friend Gareth Cliff.
Yes.
He made a hat with a big slogan on the front: "Make South Africa great again."
Right.
And it's selling well. I think you'd be interested in that.
It's
he
selling
gave it to all the members of his staff.
Oh, I see. Okay. We'll check it out. I mean, he knows how to reach me. All right. Thanks so much, Errol. Much appreciated. Make South Africa great again. In fact, just make South Africa great is where I would just stop, and just sustain the great as opposed to again, right? Because again was what happened before, which is apartheid, which is really another whole conversation. Temba in Quebec, hi.
Hi, Ashraf.
Yeah, go ahead. You want to talk about the construction industry, right?
Yes, Ashraf, in line with what has happened in George.
Yeah.
Look, Ashraf, without bringing my employer into disrepute, I should just say in my previous experience of employment, I got to understand that in the events of this nature, the law in South Africa is designed such that no one will be criminally charged. I want to start there.
No one will be criminally charged.
No one will be criminally charged. in the value chain of all the disciplines that were involved. I will tell you where the possibility is of one being criminally charged. The legislation and the regulations and the building code in South Africa are enough to regulate that space and all activities that are to happen in the construction of a building of that magnitude. People should know that project does not start when you do a site establishment. It starts at the art offices when you identify architects to design, the equipment of engineers. The problem arises when you do buildings on the existing foundations. If you have not done proper assessment by a reputable engineering company, that's where the problem lies, because you are not sure of the type of foundation and how long has it been there for it to carry the load that you are now going to place on it. The critical part again is municipalities do not have municipalities do not have or possess enough capacity and experience to either approve and monitor projects of this type.
Well,
I think if people are looking into amending legislation, they should now direct municipalities to enter into contract with engineering companies for that assessment and approval of plans, building plans that are submitted to them.
Okay.
Otherwise, the possibility lies that candidate engineers were used. They will not be covered by what will be the professional indemnity if they were the fully professionals.
Well, thanks for alerting us to that, Themba, and let's see what comes through. And I think that you're right about, too often too many investigations take place and they just hit a dead end, isn't it? And that's just maybe the worst word to use, a phrase, a dead end, if you get my point. Themba, thanks for that call, much appreciated. Let's get some further thoughts on some of the big issues we've been talking about that certainly reflects your take on the national pulse, foreign policy.
Good afternoon, Ashraf and the SAFM listeners. With regards to South Africa's foreign relations with the United States, well, my take is, what does South Africa gain by playing the arbiter in the war that's taking place between Israel and Palestine? I definitely sympathize with the people of Palestine, but we as a country should be making friends with those who will help us grow economically, because here on the ground, that is the general consensus, that this economy must grow and create jobs. Thanks, Lionel Whitbank.
Thanks for that, Lionel. So here's an interesting one, Lionel. In terms of what has South Africa gained by being this arbitrary role, arbiter, I think is what you said, with regard to Israel and Palestine. We must accept South Africa's position. I mean, what has happened in that region has started a long, long time ago, 1917 to be precise. What happened in October 7th, I think, is wrong. You cannot harm civilians, point one. Point two, what's happened after that is like magnified by 10 or 100, and we know that. The third point around that is South Africa has thrived on the fact that there was a global solidarity against apartheid. Do we walk away from that type of global solidarity if countries like the USA doesn't do the same thing? If they're turning a blind eye to an annihilation of people, do we do the same thing, even though it may impact on us commercially? It's an issue, and I think it's certainly well worth talking about. Let's talk about nurses in South Africa and globally after this.
You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Right, so there's the International Nurses Day that should obviously speak to the issue of the rights of nurses, right? Now, the Health and Allied Workers Indaba Trade Union will be boycotting International Nurses Day. International Nurses Day is a day which is meant to celebrate the work that nurses do. We got that. It's a day of pride in the profession, which is why it's celebrated each day on the anniversary of, like, the ultimate nurse, Florence Nightingale, on her birth, that is. So why would a union representing nurses, the very people who are meant to be celebrating today, choose to boycott the day? There's got to be some reasons. Let's find out more about it with Rich Sikrina, the Health and Allied Workers Indaba Trade Union President. Appreciate your time, Rich. Thank you.
Thank you, my leader, man. Salute to yourself and your team there in studio, and also the listeners of this radio station. Amanda.
There we are. You got it all. Okay, it's power to the people, power to the nurses in this case here, right? Let's get to the issue, Rich. You're boycotting International Nurses Day. Why?
Under normal circumstances, my leader, we were supposed to be celebrating ourselves, obviously, because we are the heroes. More especially as nurses, we are, in the true sense of things, we are the backbone of our healthcare system. But when you look on the ground, my leader, if you can just outline what is happening in our facilities as we speak now, in Gauteng and in KZN in particular, I don't think it is only in KZN, by the way, only in Gauteng. Go to Northwest, Limpopo, all these provinces, Eastern Cape, and all of them, we don't have photocopying machines. Photocopying machines are there, but we can't photocopy because there's no cartridge. When you're asking them, what happened? Did you not order, guys? You knew that the cartridge was coming to an end. What actually happened? No, we ordered, but the company that delivers these cartridges to us, it was not paid. Why it was not paid? Because they are saying there is no money, those in positions of authority. There's super gross shortage of staff, my leader. You are working, we are the operational manager in the ward like myself, and it's a 45-bedded ward. You only have 4 nurses, 1 professional nurse, ENA, and 2 ENAs. You actually have 4 nurses. 1 is sick, you are exposed. And these nurses, 4 of them are expected to render quality nursing care to 40 patients. We are saying we are being used by the system as accomplices of murder. The unnecessary complications and deaths we are seeing on the ground. So, we are tired of being celebrated.
All right.
Let them fix what is happening, what we want to be fixed on the ground. Don't celebrate us.
All right, Rich. The fact, Rich, you say you're being used by leadership. The fact that you are being used, isn't that more so the reason to celebrate International Nurses Day, to raise the awareness of your issues in South Africa?
That is what this is. According to us as health and allied workers in the Trade Union, we decided to say, if we are out there celebrating and rejoicing as if everything is hunky-dory on the ground, no one is going to pay attention to us. Let's take a different angle and say we are boycotting this. Our members are saying we are not going to celebrate this because every year we are told we are heroes. But like on that particular day, on the 12th of May, they will start on Friday. We are told, my dear, that we are heroes, hang in there, keep on keeping on. Then after the celebration at 1 o'clock, you go back to the ward. That same ward that doesn't have a tissue paper.
But why don't you do what many other people have done in many universities around the world? Is very topical right now. In fact, at graduation ceremonies, or in this case, your celebrations of International Nurses Day, take a stand. You take the opportunity of the spotlight on the nurses, and you raise the issues in placards or when people receive awards. Why turn that opportunity of putting out a message up front?
That was our issue, my leader, because we were sat down. We said, what else can we do besides us boycotting it totally? And in fact, that particular suggestion came into the table to say, let's actually march. Let's organize a march to Union Building. Let's go to where Joe Patla will be. We are told that Joe Patla is going to come to Telemu Khurane on Friday. Let's use that opportunity to do that. The issue was to say, okay, it looks like we didn't prepare enough because we need to go on the ground and mobilize nurses to say this is where the minister will be. Let's all go there. Okay. Then this was actually a way of saying, in the absence of the best, mediocre becomes the best. Then let's just not go there.
All right.
Joe Patla must go there and speak alone.
The question is, will it work when he speaks alone or not? We shall see. Rich Litkina, the Health and Allied Workers Indaba Trade Unions president, effectively not celebrating International Nurses Day. Let's get the news headlines now. Just gone for 30 years, Badubi.
Thanks, Ashraf. A very good afternoon. In your headlines, a South African man working aboard a cruise ship off the coast of Alaska in the USA has been arrested by the FBI on criminal charges relating to a stabbing incident on board the ship. The National Council of Provinces has failed to approve the Basic Education Laws Amendment Bill due to procedural errors. And a budget Indian airline owned by the Tata Group has cancelled another 85 flights as services are disrupted for a second day by staff sickness. And those are your headlines. A full news update at 5.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Another day, another crash on the Mike 1 going north at Grayston. In fact, this is the second one today. We had a massive one this morning, which backed everything up during this morning's rush hour. And as you turn around to drive north out of Joburg through to Sandton, you're being held again. It's a pretty heavy queue from 11th Avenue in the Houghton Estate area all the way through to that crash just before Grayston. If you're going southbound, there's quite a backlog as well with that left lane closure at Smith Street. So queues coming down from the Houghton Estate area as well. Collision N3 south before Modderfontein Road. That traffic almost back to Buccleuch Interchange. So jamming heavily on the N3 through Limborough Park and passing Alex down towards Edenvale. Collision on the N14 that we've been telling you about before Jean Avenue. Pretoria bound traffic quite severely backed up through Brockfontein and back to about the N1 Samrand Road now. Just note as well the R21 is quite heavy at Clayville, perhaps a little heavier than you might be expecting on your way down towards the airport. Durban, another day, another breakdown as well at Paradise Valley. Since the roadworks went in, the breakdowns have been happening on a regular basis. Spaghetti Junction out to Pinetown being held up. Delays around Prospect and Isipingo, the N2, both to Toti and to Durban, coming up from Tweedy Hill, both ways very slow there. In Cape Town, a crash on the N1 out of town near the N7 Highway Bridge. That's backing traffic through Coburg Interchange and quite badly holding traffic on the M5 north from the N2 Highway up to get into that N1 through Coburg Interchange. With your traffic updates, I'm Rob Byrne.
This is SAFM Sports with Doming Khapele.
All right, Chibi, you're going to start with soccer.
Yes, let's start things off with football this hour. CAF General Secretary Veran Mosenga Omba says that President Patrice Motsepe has always had the vision to qualify African football administrators. CAF and the University of Cape Town have joined hands and will see UCT providing bespoke courses and programs as an Africa Centre of Education Excellence. And the Vice Chancellor of Africa's #1 University of Cape Town, Prof. Reddy, says that this program will help to produce sound football leaders on the continent.
And the objectives align very well with UCT's vision, with UCT's emphasis on excellence, on building capacity across the African continent, in producing leaders and strengthening leadership, generally speaking. So we see the partnership as being an opportunity to contribute towards building and strengthening leadership and a range of other skills that are needed in this very complex organization and right across the continent in a sport which is by far the most popular on the continent. So what we would want to see, both CAF and ourselves, are at the national, the regional levels, really strong administrations, young, strong leaders who are able to play their role. This is a contribution, and certainly the program that we are all looking forward to starting in August, we see as the beginning, and we are hoping very much that it will grow from strength to strength.
Elsewhere, the Premier League has announced the 5 candidates up for the Manager of the Season award for the 2023-24 season. The list include Manchester City's Pep Guardiola, who has won the award 4 times previously. Liverpool's Jurgen Klopp has taken an injury hit Liverpool back to the Champions League and until recently masterminded a Premier League title push alongside Arsenal and Manchester City. Arsenal's Mikel Arteta, as his side lead the way in the standings with a record number of 26 wins, 88 goals scored and 28 goals conceded, while Bournemouth's Adoni Areola is also part of the list, and he's been recognised for guiding the Cherries into the top half of the league in his first season in charge. And then that list is rounded up by Aston Villa's Unai Emery. Meanwhile, AS Roma's coach Daniel De Rossi says that his team needs mental strength for the Europa League semi-final second leg match against Bayer Bayer Leverkusen today. Roma lost the first leg 2-0 against the Leverkusen side, who are on an extraordinary 48-match unbeaten run. Then Bantam World Champion Nkosi Ndebele has called for more support for the sport on the continent, particularly in South Africa. The 29-year-old is set to take on his biggest MMA opponent, Jose Torres, in Mauritius on Saturday. The title holder believes that with sufficient backing, the country can groom even more champions. In golf, Rory McIlroy says that he will not be returning to the PGA Tour Policy Board anytime soon after some pretty complicated and pretty messy conversations. The world number 2 resigned from his position as a player director after 2 years in November, citing personal and professional commitments. And just last month, he said that he would be willing to return to the board if he was wanted. But now, there's a change of heart. And then ending things off with the business of sports, Buffalo City Metro has reached an agreement with Cheaper United on a 3-year sponsorship deal of worth around 33 million rand. Now, the agreement will see the city host 7 games in East London at 1.2 million rand each. With that said, it is a wrap from my side for now. I'll have more in at the next hour. For SAFM Sport, I'm Dumin Kapele.
The Market Update, Monday to Thursday, 6 to 7 p.m.
Want to stay ahead of the financial game? Join us tonight from 6 to 7 p.m. for an insightful journey through the day's market developments, financial updates, and investment news. Tune in for your daily dose of financial intelligence as we navigate the twists and turns of the financial landscape with expert insights. Only on the SAFM Market Update.
SAFM Market Update with Jimmy Muyaha.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Right, let's talk about the markets with Makwe Masilela he's the Chief Investment Officer at Makwe Fund Managers. Makwe, good chatting to you. SAPI's results first up, right?
Yeah, and that is their second quarter results. Ashraf, good afternoon to you and to the listeners. If you look at their overall financial performance measured as EBITDA, it has improved by 10%, and that was due mainly to improvements from their pulp segment and some cost savings. And Ashraf, we know that the global paper market is showing some modest recovery, even though macroeconomic environment remains challenging, and there has been some decent demand for dissolving pulp, graphic papers, packaging, and specialty papers. And but their net debt, unfortunately, had to increase by 12%, with sales down 6% and profits as headline earnings per share down 58%. And unfortunately, when it comes to the third quarter, is seasonally the weakest in terms of demand when it comes to their to their products. And we saw the market reaction not being that great as the share price dropped by 3%.
Right, and then you have an update on local and global markets, right?
Yeah, we've seen a string of Fed officials commenting that interest rates will be higher for longer, but the market participants continue to increase their bets that the first cut should happen in September. And early in the session, China delivered solid trade data and some fresh signs of property support. We know that sector has been struggling, and it makes almost 30% of their GDP. And the data added to signs that domestic demand is picking up. And Ashraf, there's a lack of conviction among investors to buy into the recent bounce in stocks, and that shows that the market is far from turning fully bullish. And locally, we saw our March manufacturing production falling by 6.4% after increasing by 4% in February, and that was surprising because markets expected a 0.4% increase, and this is the first decline in 6 months and the steepest in 23 months, and that was mainly due to a 25.9% tumble when it comes to manufacturing of cars, parts and accessories and other transport equipment. And the Bank of England sent a clearer signal yet that it was closing in on interest rate cuts, indicating that markets probably were underpricing the pace of easing in the months ahead, and it seems it could happen as soon as June, while weak US job data created more uncertainty over the future path of Fed's monetary policy. And falling US crude inventories and higher Chinese imports supported expectations for demand growth when it comes to the world's two largest crude-consuming nations. Brent crude is up 0.2% at $83 a barrel, and gold traders are excited about the possible rate cuts. We see gold is up 1% at 2,334. Platinum is up 0.2% at 986. The Dow is up 0.4%. S&P up 0.1%. The DAX up 1%. FTSE up 0.4%. CAC up 0.6%. The JSE is up only 0.3%. But our resources are doing most of the heavy lifting, up 1%. Industrials up 0.3%. Our financials are flat, and the rand should be proud of itself as it's holding its ground against most major currencies. It is now 1846 to the US dollar, 2309 to the pound, and 1989 to the euro.
Okay, and that's it. We'll talk again tomorrow. Makwe, thank you.
Pleasure.
All right, there we are. Makwe Masilela, right? And the further market update coming up in about an hour's time. By the way, Herman Mashaba, the leader of the Action SA, he's my guest as part of that weekly feature we have called the Election Monitors. We got him for within the hour, 5 to 6, probably chat about 45 minutes. What is it that you'd like me... In fact, what is it? What are the three big answers you want from him? Best way to do that, I would think, is just WhatsApp in text form right away. 0614 104 107. I'll take your calls after this.
X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
All right, let's get some of the calls. There's someone called Incognito. Wow. In KZN, hello.
Hello, good afternoon, Saudi.
Yes, is that your real name or your sponsor name?
It's my sponsor name.
Okay. Go ahead.
Yes, sir.
Give me the real story. Yeah.
Yes, so when it comes to Japan, and I was listening to the previous caller, I was talking about the children being inculcated in an early age, right?
Yeah.
So now I watch a lot of Japanese anime, you see, and I see this throughout. You see, now kids go to school and they do chores at school. There are hardly any janitors or cleaning staff. So the children who are in middle school, they usually plant vegetables for their younger students, right? And now when they go to school, you see at the foyer where there are lockers and stuff, there are shelves for shoes. So they don't bring dirt into their classrooms, right? And the same thing applies at home. When you enter a home, you take off your shoes and you put them on the shelf. And some workplaces, like in offices, right? Instead, there are slippers available, right? So now kids are encouraged to bring toothbrushes to school. So after they have their lunch in, they brush their teeth. So they're taught that discipline, right? And now when you're walking your dog, you have to carry not only a plastic bag, but also a bottle of water so that you can clean after its litter and its urine. You have to wash it over in the streets.
Oh, my goodness.
And now, yes. And now when it comes to service or customer service and service delivery, there's our common phrase that goes, a customer is always right, or a customer is king, right? But now in Japan, they say that the customer is God. And the phrase is, Okyaku-sama wa kami-sama desu. You see? So now, if you want your garbage to be collected, you have to buy some coupons. So you take your plastic bag, purchase coupons, put your trash in there, and then put your stamp there to say that, yes, I paid for my garbage, and then you put it outside, and then they collect it.
Does it ultimately work as a country? I mean, two things. Does the country work, and are the people happy?
I would say that it actually works because, as one of your peers had said, that the country is clean. And I usually go on YouTube and watch these videos and everything, and I see it that way. And the people don't seem to complain about it. So I think it works for them.
People don't complain. Okay, got that. Thanks for that call, Incognito. You've now exposed yourself, Incognito, about the story, not the name, that is, but very, very good points that you brought up. And I think it certainly got me thinking about the dogs. Can you imagine that in South Africa? In fact, I've got a tweet from Garth who's saying, I'm in Pietermaritzburg, and when I ask my fellow people to stop littering, I always get the same response. And I'm quoting now. It says, I'm creating employment. Okay. Right. We're talking about, fixing communities, building champion communities. Here's another response.
Ashraf, how's it? I hope 1 minute will be enough. I'll try and make this quick. Look, there is just no will in this country to make anything right. You touched on a lot of topics. You touched on crime. You touched on cleanliness and cleaning up after ourselves and being orderly and being and serving and what have you. And we all have this dream of this country being corruption-free, whatever we want. There just isn't any will, and because there is no political will at executive level of the country just to make the country decent, I think we have the capacity, to make this country the Switzerland of Africa or whatever. But there just isn't will for a great nation. No one has this vision, and there's no shared vision of where we want this country to be. So all of these things about, the crime, the cleanliness, or what, they just boil down to will. We don't want to.
Well, let me answer this. If there's no political will, what about people will? Is there people will? And if there's no people will, then people do not. Who said we have to work through political parties to create a culture? Well, look, I'll say this. I speak often about this vision of understanding our national purpose. It doesn't have to emanate from the politicians. It shouldn't. In fact, that's their manifestos. We need people's will. Okay? Think about that. We discussed crime earlier on, and the answer should get you thinking.
Hi, Ashraf. This is Mutazi from Pretoria. I'm thinking, the ANC government is so passionate and preoccupied with crime and social grants. I think in this Operation Shangelas, why don't they just grow the economy and let everyone soar and fly and just reach their potential? I mean, when people are suffocating and they don't know, they're frustrated, they will commit crime. So I think maybe this is what they want, because everybody, an environment has to be conducive. Is it conducive for everybody to reach their potential?
Well, the issue of the burning, well, thank you for that. The environment has to be conducive, but sometimes, you can't wait for the environment to be perfect. It's like, you live in a home and the roof is leaking. It doesn't mean you don't live in the home. You still live in the home and you make it happen. And then slowly and surely you get things sorted out, isn't it? The DA burning flag issue still continues. Jerry has a view. Hi, Jerry.
Hi, Mr. Garda.
Good indeed, yeah. Go ahead. What's your point?
Yes, sir. No, man, I've got a minute. If you see the South African flag on the DA's logo and compared with the South African flag, the original one, they are very distinctive differentiate. The difference that is there's black and there's white on the DA's one. When you can see why they are banning that one, they are banning the black people.
What did you mean? Why are they burning it? What's the difference?
They are blending the black part on the original flag. If you check the original flag, it's got black. The one that the imitation, the DA that they put on their logo, the South African flag on their logo, DA's logo,
okay.
Or on DA's, yes.
I never noticed that, and you know what? Some may say that's trivial, but I chatted, as you know, to Tebe Kalafeng the other day.
That one is dominated by white. You can see that's what they are playing.
Oh my goodness! Okay, thanks for that call, Jerry. Well, here's an interesting thought. Okay, let me repeat. I had a chat with Tebe Kalafeng, who's a brand specialist, 2 days ago, and he made the point that if an advert needs explaining after the advert, then it hasn't landed. It hasn't worked. It's like a stand-up comedian delivering a joke, then it hasn't worked. So that's point one. Point two, by their very nature, adverts at 30 seconds only, as per my chat with Helen Ziller yesterday, has got to land very, very quickly. And Tebe's suggestion is that it has to be communicated in a way that's simple messaging, not complicated. So people don't even hear the words. What they do is they go to the images first. And the image is incredibly powerful. And that's what they cotton on to and have an opinion, right or wrong. What comes through in the text is less important. So here's the point. I mean, I haven't picked up the white and the black colors of the flag burning. I don't know. But it just shows you majority of us don't look into the detail. We need to catch it first up and have an opinion right away.
Again, now Varashe Marumo, one of your KNR presenters. If you're interested in anything sport, entertainment and education, make sure you tune in to Kids Newsroom right here on ACBC2 every Monday at 4:30 p.m. You don't want to miss it.
Am I left or right-brained? I'm leaning right, right? However, I do have some left-brain tendencies. Perhaps I'm left-brained with right-brain tendencies. Am I overthinking this? I don't want to be caught underthinking it. Or maybe I'm overthinking about underthinking the overthinking. Which am I?
At RMB, the simple answer is both. When you need a thoughtful solution for financial complexity that doesn't make you choose, there are only 3 letters you need to know. RMB, a division of First Rand Bank Limited, an authorized FSP and registered credit provider.
The SAFM University Debate Challenge is back. Join us for the 1-hour debate on This Week Today with Oliver Dixon from 6 to 7 p.m. on Friday, the 10th of May 2024 at the SABC Auditorium in Auckland Park, Johannesburg. The University of Pretoria will take on the University of Witwatersrand in what promises to be a nail-biting debate. The SAFM University Debate Challenge is an independent, non-partisan progressive initiative seeking to develop confident communicators, critical thinkers, and empowered global citizens. If you want to attend the debate, you can email info@safm.co.za. SAFM, leading the conversation.
The Road Accident Fund will be announcing the winners of the Road Safety School Competition and youth projects to be supported by the fund. So in August 2023, that's last year, the RAF launched a comprehensive road safety program for learners and youth. This program involved educating learners in primary schools, special schools and high schools about road safety through talks and industrial theatre performances as well as road safety simulations. Now, the event itself will be held in Durban tomorrow, the 10th of May. For more information, call RAF on 087 820 and then 1111. You got that 4 ones. 087 820 1111 or check out the website raf.co.za.
This Election Watch feature is brought to you by Kagiso Trust. Follow the #RememberMe initiative.
I certainly will chat to Herman Mashaba later on about that flag and what his thoughts about it, because of course he's a partner in that coalition with the DA, right? But let's get to what we do every day as part of the Election Watch. We encourage people to vote. We look at different aspects of voting and why voting really matters. And in this case here today, my guest is Ruben Ichikovitz, who's the trustee of the Ichikovitz Family Foundation. Ruben, you're live on the National Pulse. Good chatting to you.
Good afternoon.
Thank you. Right. I understand, in terms of your foundation, you've put together a fascinating survey around South African youth linked to the elections. Tell me about that.
So this survey is our South African edition of a continent-wide African youth survey, which we've been conducting since 2020. We poll youth 18 to 24 years old across 16 countries this year. We've polled South Africa intensively because it is an election year. And this provides a fascinating data set of how South Africa compares to other countries around the continent.
Okay, so how do we compare?
I wish I could share better news, but our youth are 3/4 of which the youth feel that South Africa is not heading in the right direction. This negative sentiment has increased 24% since we first polled this question in 2020. And when ranked against other countries around Africa, South Africa fares very poorly in the stats. There are numerous underlying issues which are recurring themes in part of what's driving this negative sentiment. Which we can unpack as well.
Okay, and maybe just touch on that very quickly. What drives it?
So the first and the biggest point that's been raised is a 21% increase in concern around corruption. So 76% of youth are dissatisfied with government's actions to crack down on corruption, and about 48% cites corruption as a key reason of why there has not been sufficient employment and job creation.
Okay, then the other part is the issues of whether they're likely to vote. I mean, that is so important to all the political parties listening in right now.
Correct. So we see that just about half of the poll have reflected that they plan to vote, with a very big 34% being undecided. And 16% saying that they don't intend to vote. Now, what is positive is we've seen an increase in voter registration over the different editions of the survey, with the highest levels of voter registration in this year. And although it's quite concerning that there's still a large proportion that is on the fence.
Because if you've got like 63% who's registered to vote, it means like almost 40% are not registered to vote anyway, right? As part of your survey, did you ask them a question, which is what would get them to vote in bigger numbers? What would convince the skeptical who says, I'm not voting, to start voting?
It's a great question. I think that the survey evolves as it goes from year to year, where there are strong trends that emerge. We then invest more effort into unpacking that in the following years, and I think that this would be something that's very important to get into. We did ask at a high level, and again, there's general frustration with the effectiveness of government. There's frustration that youth voices are not particularly heard. While that said, on the positive note, youth still feel empowered and highly ambitious. And perhaps one of the other interesting insights that we've gleaned from the surveys is we asked a question around whether you feel that the dawn of democracy has delivered on a post-apartheid dream. And I think that we find that the baseline in South Africa is set quite differently to around the rest of the continent, with substantially more emphasis that's put on perhaps higher levels of hope here. And as you know, it's also important to consider that this demographic of 18 to 24-year-olds were born well into the first years of democracy.
Okay,
So
here's the last thing, and it's really important. I see there is young people were polled on their support for the form of what I'd call non-democratic forms of government. That's a hot question. What happened there?
So this is a very hot question, and to be honest, this question was in because of many of the other countries which we poll in West Africa specifically, which have seen military coups over the last few years, and historically in those countries, youth have indicated that they are open to other forms of democracy. We were quite surprised to see that this was now a feature in the South African data set as well, and we find that about a third of respondents say that they're open to a form of a non-democratic government. Now, what that means, we don't know. This is going to be something that we interrogate intensively in the future, because this was one of those surprising outcomes.
I'd like to think they're going to answer to say we are happy with working through civil society democratically to effect greater change outside of Parliament. I mean, that would be the mature answer if that's what's going to come through. Ruben, let's leave it at that. If we need to know more, I mean, can you direct us to the full details of this survey?
Yes, it's available at the Chicovitz Foundation website, at chicovitzfoundation.com, and we welcome and open to collaboration across the board on this data set.
Perfect. That's so we can leave it to Ruben Chicovitz, who's the trustee of the Chicovitz Family Foundation. Really important numbers coming out in terms of what the youth, your voter, potentially for a political party, what are they thinking?
This Election Watch feature was brought to you by Kagiso Trust. Follow the hashtag #RememberMe initiative.
Right. A reminder, we'll chat to Herman Mashaba. I see somebody anonymous saying, Ashraf, Black Like Me, Herman Mashaba coming up, which I suppose would be a common one that people certainly know what's he all about. So there's lots of other WhatsApp voice text comments we can't really play right now. But remember, we'll chat to Herman Mashaba as part of this feature that we have every Thursday. Somebody said, Ashraf, when are you going to talk to Zongezo Zibi? I think it's coming up in 2 weeks' time. So not this Thursday, not the coming Thursday, but then 2 Thursdays from now, which would be a week before the elections. I think it is. And who we're going to have next week, I don't know. We'll find out soon. Probably Timber will sort of tell me as soon as he gets a chance. Right now it's 5 o'clock. It means time for Greg Coast to take over. He's at the news desk.
Thank you and good afternoon to you, Ashraf. In this news update, SA man arrested on cruise ship and law enforcement ready for the elections. Good day to you. A South African man working on board a cruise ship off the coast of the U.S. state of Alaska has been arrested by the FBI on criminal charges in relation to a stabbing incident on board the ship. The U.S. Justice Department says in a statement that Ntando Sogone was working on the cruise ship when other ship employees observed him attempting to deploy a lifeboat. Show Bryce Peace reports that he's been charged with assault with a dangerous weapon and could face a maximum of 10 years in prison and a $250,000 fine for each count.
The Justice Department says that when Sogone arrived in the ship's medical facility, he attacked a security guard and a male nurse, then proceeded to enter another examination room where an elderly American passenger was being examined. It's alleged that he grabbed a pair of scissors and stabbed the woman multiple times in the arm, hand and face. He then stabbed 2 security guards who intervened, one in the head and one in the back and shoulders. The Justice Department statement says he was then detained and held in the ship's jail until his arrest by the FBI. According to court papers, he had only started working on the cruise liner named the Norwegian Encore as recently as May 5th. Shervin Brycepees, SABC News, New York.
The National Council of Provinces has failed to approve the Basic Laws Amendment Bill due to procedural errors. The DA complained that the bill wasn't published on the announcements, tablings and committee reports of Parliament as per the requirements. The main objective of the bill is to make significant amendments to the SA Schools Act and the Educators Employment Act. The NCOP's Deputy Chairperson Sylvia Lucas has ruled that the matter be deferred to the next sitting for finalisation.
It seems as if procedurally things have not been after there was agreement on the content matters. It's just a procedural issue, and that is on the issue of making sure that the report are put onto the ATC, onto the announcements, tablings and committees report. Apparently it have not happened like that. I would now rule that this matter be ATC'd and be dealt with in the next House sitting.
Parliament says more than 50 additional offices will be completed for members in the 7th Parliament. Secretary to Parliament, Kulile George, briefed the media on the institution's rebuilding project of the 2 buildings that were gutted by fire in 2022.
So the greatest part of our energy last year was consumed by providing offices of members of Parliament. And we are glad that as at end of July last year, simultaneously, we completed 155 offices for members. Contrary to say nothing is happening in Parliament, 155 offices have been provided to members and additional boardrooms. We are now busy as we speak to work on the additional 54 offices that we envisage to complete by July. So at the 7th Parliament, when members start, no member of Parliament would say we do not have offices.
In election news, the Gauteng Police Commissioner Tommy Mtombeni says law enforcement agencies have been beefed up to ensure a safe and secure election on the 29th of this month. He was briefing the Gauteng Legislature's Portfolio Committee on Community Safety in Johannesburg.
South African Police Service, in conjunction with the presiding officer, will have a primary responsibility of ensuring that the law and order is maintained. In an event that we can have some disruptions, or we have the presiding officer who is not available due to some other reasons, we're having the police officials, those who are trained through the IEC in terms of the process flow for these elections.
A budget Indian airline owned by the Tata Group has cancelled another 85 flights as services are disrupted for a second day by staff sickness. The BBC's Anbarasan Etirajan has more.
Thousands of passengers were stranded in various parts of India as well as in the Gulf as Air India Express cancelled at least 175 flights in the past 2 days. Other flights were delayed. The company said it was taking appropriate action against individuals after 100 cabin crew took sudden sick leave. Media reports linked the current crisis to simmering staff discontent over new policies on hiring and promotion by Tata, which took over the airline 2 years ago. Tata is in the process of merging Air India Express with Air Asia India.
Top stories: a South African man working on board a cruise ship off the coast of the US state of Alaska has been arrested by the FBI on criminal charges in relation to a stabbing incident on board the ship. That's SAFM News. I'm Greg Gous.
And coming up in your sports this hour, Nadal advances to the second round in Rome. Matthews named in Sri Lanka's T20 World Cup side, and Athletics South Africa to host more training camps for relay teams. I'll have more on this at 5:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
It's still very heavy on the N14 on the way to Pretoria today. It's an earlier crash on the Benjamin Highway between the Brakfontein interchange and Jean Avenue. And you'll feel the back of that queue. You pick it up sort of around about Samrand Road on the N1 going north. So that's a really big hold-up. Also very heavy on Joburg's N3 South today. A collision before Modderfontein Road. In fact, it's between Modderfontein and Linksfield Road. So it's deep into Edenvale. The backlog right through to Buccleuch. And if you're driving out towards Durban or wanting to get to Heidelberg, the N3 is closed. It's been a massive crash down past the Vosloorus exit, so just after Barry Marais towards the Alberton Road exit, and that's where the collision is. The N3 towards Heidelberg closed at that Barry Marais off-ramp, so a lot of pressure there. Durban, a stationary truck up by the Trade Centre in the Phoenix area, so the M41 passing Mount Edgecombe and the R102 going up to Trade Centre is all very heavy. Crash on the N2 north at Queen Nundy and a breakdown further up at Gateway, the N2 northbound under quite a bit of pressure working past those obstructions in Cape Town today. Stellenbosch Arterial, heavy traffic around the R300 bridge. It's heavy enough to be backing traffic coming off the R300 in both directions. And if you come in from Stellenbosch on Bottle Array Road, there's been quite a big collision scene by Botfontein Road, and that's causing a delay through Cales River going westbound. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Location: London. Unit: the London Serious Crime Unit. The Steering: Luther, a dedicated policeman, an inspired maker of connections, and a whirlwind genius. Dazzling, obsessive, and sometimes dangerous in the violence of his fixations. The Challenge. Every episode will see Luther facing a succession of psychological duels between a hunter and the hunted, a predator and the prey. Tune in to Luther, Monday to Wednesdays at 9 p.m. on S3. Starts 1st of May. Channel your best drama with BBC Primetime only on S3. Open up.
Are you ready to take charge of your future? Looking to study at a world-class university and reach your goals without sacrificing your busy schedule? Look no further. Fuel your future with UNISA. The leading open distance e-learning university offers state-of-the-art higher education solutions that will give you the head start you deserve. Semester 2 applications for selected qualifications are now open and will close on the 10th of May 2024. Apply online now. Visit unisa.ac.za for more information. UNISA, define tomorrow.
EFC is live this Thursday. Two grappling wizards will battle it out for the vacant welterweight title at EFC 113 as Gelson Souza and Zakir Banat fight it out for championship glory. Plus, Faiz Jacobs is out for revenge against the great Sylvester Chifumbu for #1 contendership. EFC 113 live this Thursday. Watch it on SABC Sport Channel on DTT Channel 4 from 7 p.m. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Right, every Thursday we talk elections in a big way, where we speak to a leader of a political party in the run-up to May 29, which is now, 20 days away exactly. My guest today is the leader of Action SA, Herman Mashaba. Herman, good chatting to you and good seeing you.
Good. Thank you so much, Ashraf. Lovely to be interviewed with you, by you after a long time.
I know it's been a long time.
We've not had any one-on-one engagement.
The last time was you were the mayor of Joburg.
Yes, that's right. And,
so here's the question. Do you miss being the mayor?
Absolutely not, but it's a necessary job. I mean, Ashraf, people don't understand when I tell them I hate this job, because I wasn't really born to be a politician. It's not Herman Mashaba, but at the same time, if not Herman Mashaba, then who? Because one thing I've learned throughout my life is that in the event of civil society failing to protect their own country, then you end up being governed by criminals or by dictators. And right now, living under a democratic dispensation, it is my personal obligation as well to really fight for my country.
So do you really hate this job?
Oh, truly. My goodness. I wasn't born. I'm a capitalist.
I know.
The capitalism runs through my veins. If you want Herman Mashaba to enjoy his work, it's when he's in the trenches making money, selling products and so forth, trading. But at the end of the day, you know what, as much as one would really simply say, I hate this job, but one thing for sure is one of the most rewarding jobs. It gives me such personal satisfaction every morning to wake up that I live a life of purpose. Because you can imagine, Ashraf, if I wasn't doing this job, honestly, I'll probably be in a mental institution because I got so sick and tired of being an armchair critic.
This is before you were a politician.
Before I went into politics. I just found it totally unacceptable to really be complaining as if I live under a dictator or under an authoritarian system. Now, I live in a constitutional democracy where I have the right as an individual to do something, and I decided, you know what, if it's not you, Herman Mashaba, then who?
Okay. Well, I mean, if the example for many people is if you're dissatisfied with things in a country, you can become this civil society activist and then take action at some stage translate into a political party to effect change, and you are the example of that. It doesn't necessarily mean that I or others agree with your politics, but you've certainly done that. You've understood that the only, put it this way, the only football pitch you can play football is on the field of play.
Absolutely.
Or rugby field. You can't play outside. Well, and you've understood that you have to play the game here.
Yeah, and I think civil society, South Africans in particular, let's learn to not allow other people to set our agendas for us. The mistake that human beings make in life is when they allow others to set agendas for them. And I refuse. I've always refused throughout my life for other people to set agenda for me without buying into that agenda.
Okay. Now, today is less about a profile, but very much about, you in relation to Action SA, right? And I'll therefore ask you first up about, allowing you to pitch for a vote. There's an audience. There's a nationwide audience. People listening live. People will listen later on podcasts and on streaming live connections. And ultimately, it's you trying to deliver a message to convince them, me and others, to vote for you. So let me give you a minute and a half or 2 minutes to say, here's your 2-minute pitch. Go for it.
Well, I think South Africans, one thing that you've got to understand and accept is the fact that our country is in big trouble, sitting with 44% unemployment, the highest sustainable rate in the world. We're a murder capital of the world, we're the rape capital of the world. And all these issues are not going to solve themselves. We sit with an education system that is producing unemployable youth. So we need urgent intervention. And it's for that reason some of us got into politics to intervene, and obviously, fortunate enough, we now have a vehicle called Action SA. What is it that as Action SA we offer you? We offer a party committed to an unracial South Africa, because personally, I believe the only way this country would survive is all of us as South Africans embrace one another as South Africans. Secondly, we believe in a market-driven economy. This nonsense of socialism and whatever. I think if we need a prosperous South Africa, we need a market-driven economy, driven mainly by the private sector, mainly by the SMMEs. We need to make sure that we protect them to employ our people and get our economy going, and protect them from people with other agendas. We believe strongly in social justice. I think as South Africans, we must refuse to live side by side with poverty and inequality. So the only way we can drive that is to get an economy that is working. But the economy that's working is driven by the rule of law. You can't have an effective economy in an environment of chaos. So the rule of law very crucial, independent criminal justice system to ensure that anyone who steals public monies, anyone who murders, anyone who rapes, anyone who brings drugs into our country, they must face the serious might of the law. And we want ethical leadership. We can't really be governed by people who get involved in things that are unethical. I think as South Africans, the voters, please reflect on your role. Why on earth, in a democratic dispensation, can you allow yourself to be governed by people with no morals? So I think it's really very important for us as South Africans to really look at us in that perspective.
Okay.
We are the party that is saying we will address these issues and we will be unapologetic, we'll be uncompromising to make sure that we put people of South Africa first.
All right. And lastly, on that pitch, right, and this is a 30-second answer only. So people are going to the polls to vote. So why Action SA in 30 seconds?
Why people have to really vote for Action SA? Because we it's a party that is really led by someone who succeeded in business against all odds. Someone who had an opportunity to be the mayor of the city of Johannesburg, coming from a non-political environment, and my record as a mayor of the city of Johannesburg is beyond any question. But at the same time, here's someone actually leading a group of like-minded South Africans throughout the country in all the 9 provinces that shares the same vision and shares the same values as I do to lead this country.
Let's see if people are convinced, and we'll only know that maybe on the 30th of May or the 1st of June thereafter, after that election. What are your expectations? How many? You're going into, 20 days to go. How many votes? I've had people here that's like, well, we're going to win the election. I'm going to be the president. I'm going to win 5 regions. What are your expectations for Action SA?
Well,
percentage-wise.
I think anyone who's going to really give you a definite answer, that person, it's smoking something, because I can give you a number right now.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you the day after the elections, 29th, 9 o'clock, when they close, and IEC and the party agents, they start counting. My discussion with you is not going to factor. So
fair enough,
people, you can only obviously get the number, the actual number, when voters after when IEC and the party agents count. But
I think
one thing
true.
I can tell you,
that
our expectation is that we are going to do well. We are going to be the party that's going to lead Gauteng on our own or with other parties. So people, the residents of Gauteng in particular, just want to really let them know that Panyaza Lesufi is the last ANC premier in Gauteng, and once we take over Gauteng as the economic hub of our country, then we can start ushering in a new dispensation for South Africa.
Which then leads me to this. So you're saying Gauteng in particular is your focus, and
no, it's not our focus. We are focusing in all 9 provinces equally, but the thing is, Gauteng, we already got a head start. You remember we contested in 2021 local government elections. First time 1-year-old party contesting as a logo, and we emerged as the 4th biggest political party from 3 municipalities. We are officially the 4th biggest political party in Johannesburg. We received just over 10% of Gauteng. Now, if you look at now, we are now 3.5 years old. We are contesting all 9 municipalities in Gauteng, and Gauteng is not as scattered like the other provinces. So it's really much easier to campaign in Gauteng. And fortunately enough, the other thing, people of Gauteng are not oblivious to the mess and the suffering that they've endured over the last 30 years. So I think with the reception here in Gauteng, it's beyond any measure.
So to confirm, and I know we can't hold you to it, but what's your expectation nationally? Percentage-wise?
Must I say 10, 15%?
No, but I mean, there would be a realistic expectation.
Well, but it's academic. And
well, your polls say 1%, some say 2%.
Yeah, well, didn't they say that we'll be lucky to get 1%?
Well,
you want me to show you what the polls said about Action SA in 2021? They said we'll be lucky to get 1%. We got 16% of Johannesburg, 16%. We've got 44 councillors in the city of Johannesburg, where every poll call every expert who came onto your studio, who went on television that says Action SA will be lucky to get 3 councillors in the city of Johannesburg. We've got 44 councillors in Johannesburg. We've got 19 in Tshwane. They said we'll get nothing. We've got 15 in
is 10% realistic for you?
Well,
nationally?
Absolutely. I'll be disappointed.
If you get less than 10?
If we get 10% at the national level, I'll be disappointed personally.
Okay. And Gauteng, to make the point you said, you expect to win Gauteng outright?
We are campaigning to win outright. But will we get it? I think only the voters will determine that. But in the event we don't get outright, I can tell you we'll lead a coalition in Gauteng to remove the ANC from government.
We just for a minute now, we'll talk about other policies just now, but just tell me about your marketing campaign. I mean, one thing I've seen is, and I've told you this off air, every one of you just wears green, lime green. It's in my face, so that you're visually incredibly strong. But tell me more about your marketing campaign.
Well, our marketing campaign, Ashraf, I'm sure you know me long before. You know me for almost 40 years. Long before I went into politics. I'm a marketer. I'm a trader. I build a business, as you are aware, with 30,000 rands in a 200 square meter factory. Within a matter of 5 years, I was one of the big
Maybe hold that thought, because I want to know, how do you learn from business to market a political party, which we'll do that right after this.
Support Slipper Day on the 31st of May and help children like me fighting life-threatening illnesses to reach their dreams. Visit reachfordream.org.za and make a difference. And don't forget to step into your slippers on Slipper Day. Reach for a Dream, inspiring hope. This is an SABC-supported initiative.
Count down the best 41 moments from the last decade of Top Gear every Friday at 9 p.m. from the 3rd of May with Richard Hammond. Throwback to James May, aka Captain Slow, driving up an active volcano. The team goes on an epic supercar road trip through Romania and the unmasking of the Stig. I really thought he was malevolent. This is automotive action you simply cannot miss. Channel your inner Stig with BBC Primetime only on S3. Open up.
S3. The SABC Fortune Combo radio stations, which includes SAFM, Lotus FM, and Radio 2000, seek the services of a freelance graphic designer who will collaborate with cross-functional teams to create visually compelling assets that align with our receptive brand identities and resonate with our target audiences. The minimum requirements for the position are a bachelor's degree or diploma in graphic design, visual arts, or related field, 2 to 4 years proven experience as a graphic designer with a strong portfolio showcasing a range of design projects. All interested candidates should submit their CVs and portfolio of evidence to vacancy@safm.co.za. Application close on the 26th of May 2024. For more detailed info, visit www.safm.co.za or follow us on our social media pages at SAFM Radio. SAFM, leading the conversation. You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Right, the National Pulse moving the way of Action SA for today, because my guest is Herman Mashaba. This is with 20 days ahead to the election. We'll chat up to 6 o'clock. I'll take calls. I'll take WhatsApp voice notes. Please be brief if you get a chance. It's not that easy managing the guests and the callers. I'm just telling that you so you know that, right? Let's get a caller for now. Willie in Kuma. Hi, Willie. Oh, sorry, we're going to get to Andrew first. Andrew, hi.
Hi, Ashraf. Good evening. How are you?
I'm good indeed. Right, go ahead, Andrew.
All right, President, greetings as well. It's Andrew from Durban. I am an Action SA member from as early as the People's Dialogue. I just want to make contributions as to why I personally view Action SA as the perfect choice on the 29th of May. We have a situation where we have an uneducated or ill-informed electorate, where we have political parties preying on this and leading their campaigns based on chanting slogans which are not relevant to today. You have people chanting Amanda as if we still live in apartheid when it's not the case. And unfortunately, our electorate is still attracted to that. I like Action SA because I view them as policy shapers. We litigate in court when there are things that we feel are being done wrong. And that litigation and the outcomes of it will stand and stick for time to come as a reference. So that is the type of party that will take us in the future, especially in a maturing democracy where we are going into coalitions. We are to embrace this era because we are entering a mature democracy where catered deployment will no longer be existing.
Okay.
We need a professionalized government where people in the right positions with the right qualifications to do the job are placed in such.
Okay.
Herman Mashaba as an individual, just quickly.
You got 15 seconds, Andrew, please, yeah.
All right. This is a man who, when it was popular to do so, still stuck to his guns and didn't change course. He said he's there to unseat the ANC, and he still stuck to his gun and said he's not going to work with the ANC. We need to appreciate that in a politician.
All right, we'll ask him who he'll work with just now. Thanks for that, Willie. In fact, we've got Andrew. We've got Willie. Let's get your thoughts. Hi, Willie.
Yes, thank you. Action SA, how are you going to tackle the issue of the truck companies who are hiring the foreign nationals over the South Africans? Secondly, how are you going to tackle the issue of the hospitality companies such as restaurants and blah, 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 who are hiring more foreign nationals than the South Africans? Thanks, Ashraf.
All right, thanks for that, Willie. In fact, we'll bring that up, the issue of foreign nationals. It's something that Herman Mashaba has pronounced on before. We'll certainly get his thoughts on that. Okay, we'll pick up maybe indirectly these questions that have been put through to you, but I just wanted to ask you very quickly about the point we made earlier about, so how do you market the election machinery of Action SA to try and get the maximum awareness to get votes?
Well, I think with due respect, Ashraf, you don't expect me to share my trade secrets.
I thought I did.
Well, it's something that we will never share. One thing I can tell you that is obvious is that we work hard, surround myself with the best of South Africans who are committed to this cause. I surround myself with activists. We've got I think up to now probably 320 activists throughout the country. We've already covered up to a few days ago 52% of the wards in the country where we've got branches. So in branch for it to be formed, you've got to have a minimum of 50 people in a branch, and some of the branches have got 300-400 people in a branch. So we've got foot on the ground of South Africans working towards ensuring that we can turn as many people as possible to come and vote. But there are obviously certain trade secrets that we cannot really share. We use common sense, and I think our love for our country and our people, that's really what's driving us, because we, as much as we hate this job, but it's a rewarding it's a rewarding job. We do it with absolute passion, because we know if we fail, there's a lot at stake.
Well, the thing is, you need common sense, hard work, and you also need money. Here's a question about money.
Good afternoon, Ashraf, and your guest, Herman Mashaba. My question is, that Herman Mashaba, it is true you received 15 million from the Oppenheimer family. If it is true, if they give you 15 million in future, what they are going to benefit to Action SA, or are they was buying 50% shareholders in Action SA? Is Anonymous in Matosal.
Okay, answer that.
Well, Anonymous, please just really use common sense, as Ashraf has spoken about earlier on. I think everyone who donated to Action SA, we've declared every cent, obviously, as required by law. So people who gave us the money didn't really give us money because they wanted to be hidden, or they've got another agenda. So this information that you've got is not a secret. It is there. Go into the IEC website. Everyone who donated anything over 100,000, it is there. So I don't understand why you'd still want further confirmation.
I think that the question is, what is the level of influence?
Well, I
that
think
they have on your policy.
Action SA, what about me as in my personal capacity? What about my family? You know how much money we put in
Tell
to
me how
start
much.
this? Well, it's Ashraf, from the day of the People's Dialogue, because people started obviously coming to support us after the party was formed. Before that, I had to underwrite this organization, and I've also underwritten this organization. Is it necessary? I'm not obliged to really disclose, but then you ask yourself, Herman Mashaba, what is your agenda? Why do you put your family's money at risk? Because you know what, Ashraf, this country means so much to me and my family and my fellow South Africans. And we're not going to save this country by driving 10 Mercedes-Benz and Lamborghinis. This country is going to be saved by privileged South Africans like us, like all the democracies all over the world, which are supported by people like me, who are fortunate enough to
just
support
just a quick
democracy.
one. I hear what you're saying, and I know you've bankrolled to a large degree Action SA, but just 30
And I
seconds.
still do.
The issue of influence, let's say with the Oppenheimers. What
influence will they have? If you ask Oppenheimers, what about my family? What agenda do we have? We've put in money my family put in money into Action SA, and we are still putting money even today because of our love for the country, because unfortunately to run a political party...
If they say regime change is an agenda.
What regime change? What now?
To ensure that the government is toppled.
Well, but tell me, Ashraf, my agenda to get into politics, you know what was it? I made it clear from day one when I accepted to be the mayoral candidate was to unseat the ANC democratically.
So it's very clear.
I'm in politics, and I'm putting money towards this project because we have to unseat this uncaring, corrupt, unpatriotic government out of power, and we want to do it in a democratic, peaceful manner. That's the agenda.
Okay, just pause. We'll talk more about that and your policies and politics. Herman Mashaba, leader of Action SA. Let's get to the news headlines now with Greg Kroos.
Quick look at the headlines. A 10-year-old learner has been stabbed to death, allegedly by another learner from a different school at Brunfort in the Free State. The Labour Minister says the owners of the collapsed building in George in the Western Cape will be thoroughly probed. And a South African man working on board a cruise ship off the coast of the US state of Alaska has been arrested by the FBI on criminal charges in relation to a stabbing incident on board that ship. A full update at 6 o'clock.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Quite a few issues on Civic N3 going south. A collision between Modderfontein and Linksfield is your first problem. That's a very heavy queue from the N1 Buccleuch all the way down into Edenvale. You get through that, and then you sit from Galuli's interchange down to a crash just past the Heldenace interchange. And then if you're travelling further down towards Heidelberg, maybe direction Free State or Durban, the N3 is closed at Barry Marev. There's been a big crash south of Barry Marev in that phosphorus area. Quite a backlog of traffic waiting to get off the N3 at the Barry Marev alternative routing. Phoenix, just outside Durban, very heavy, really heavy backlogs getting in tonight. The R102 is heavy up to Trade Centre. The M41 to Trade Centre into Phoenix queues back right to the N2 highway. Cape Town, Somerset West is quite busy. Queues both ways on the N2 at Victoria Street, and a whole pile of traffic backlogging on the Stellenbosch Arterial Road at the R300 in the Delft area. Bad enough to be having you sit on the R300 off-ramps to get into Stellenbosch Arterial. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Khapele.
To me, yesterday this time it was Champions League final, big event today.
Well, we start things off with tennis this hour. Rafa Nadal began his bid for an 11th title in Rome with a 4-6, 6-3 and 6-4 win over Zizou Bergs. Nadal came back from a set down to fight back in 3 hours to wrap up the game, and he next takes on Hubert Hurkacz on Saturday. Then in cricket, Angelo Matthews will make his 6th T20 World Cup appearance after being named in Sri Lanka's 15-man squad that will be led by Wanindu Hazaranka. Matthews, who returned to the T20 setup earlier this year in January after an absence of nearly 3 years, says that he's back and he's happy to be back in the squad. Now, the squad has no changes from the team that won the 3 series against Bangladesh, Afghanistan and Zimbabwe this year. And then moving on to football, the Premier League has announced 5 candidates for the Manager of the Season award for the 2023-24 campaign, and the list include Manchester City, City's Pep Guardiola, who has won the award 4 times previously. Liverpool's Jurgen Klopp, who has taken an injury-hit Liverpool back to the Champions League and until recently masterminded a Premier League title push alongside Arsenal and Man City. Arsenal's Mikel Arteta is in the list as he led his side all leading the way in the standings with a record number of 26 wins, 88 goals scored and 28 goals conceded. Bournemouth's Adona Areola, who guided the Cherries into the top half of the league in his first season in charge, and Aston Villa's Unai Emery, who improved the club's fortunes after taking over from Steven Gerrard 18 months ago. Then finally in athletics, Athletics South Africa has announced plans for a pre-Olympic training camp in France for the men's 4x100 meter and 4x400 meter relay teams. The training camp will take place 2 weeks before the Paris Olympic Games. SA's 100 meter record holder Akani Simbini and 400 meter record holder Wade van Niekerk guided the relay teams respectively to qualifying for the Olympics, and the ASA looks to make sure that the teams are at their best come the Games. The Olympics set to take place from the 26th of July to the 11th of August in Paris, with the track and field competitions starting on the 1st at the Olympic Stadium. So exactly 78 days to go until the Paris Olympics, and don't forget that you can catch all the action on SABC Sport from the 26th of July to the 11th of August. With that said, it is a wrap from my side. And
I hope you get to the Olympics. I'm just putting it out there so the whole country knows that.
I am praying.
Okay, there we are.
EFC is live this Thursday. 2 grappling wizards will battle it out for the vacant welterweight title at EFC 113 as Gelson Souza and Zakir Banat fight it out for championship glory. Plus, Faiz Jacobs is out for revenge against the great Sylvester Chipumbu for #1 contendership. EFC 113 live this Thursday. Watch it on SABC Sport Channel on DTT Channel 4 from 7 p.m. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
DA leader John Steenhuisen. What qualifies the DA to run the country?
Firstly, we do not tolerate corruption. And where the DA governs, life is better. And that is why millions of South Africans are moving to DA governments. We still have much more to do. But in the past year, the Western Cape created over 300,000 new jobs and is working every day to become load shedding free. We can bring this DA difference to the rest of South Africa, but only if you vote for the DA.
This political party advertisement was paid for by the political party concerned. The views expressed in this advertisement are those of the political party and not those of the SABC.
The SAFM University Debate Challenge is back. Join us for the 1-hour debate on This Week Today with Oliver Dixon from 6 to 7 p.m. on Friday, the 10th of May 2024 at the SABC Auditorium in Auckland Park, Johannesburg. The University of Pretoria will take on the University of Witwatersrand in what promises to be a nail-biting debate. The SAFM University Debate Challenge is an independent, non-partisan progressive initiative seeking to develop confident communicators, critical thinkers, and empowered global citizens. If you want to attend the debate, you can email info@safm.co.za. SAFM, leading the conversation.
Right, Frank Chikane was detained, tortured and poisoned by the apartheid government, but he never stopped fighting for freedom. In 1994, he flew in a helicopter over the endless lines of South Africans voting for the very first time and said afterwards that what he saw was unimaginable. On May the 29th, the Kagiso Trust's Remember Me initiative encourages South Africans to honour Chikane's struggle by exercising the right he fought so hard for, the right to vote. #Remember Me.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Right, we'll get back to Herman Mashaba pretty shortly. Before we do that, let's get to something that he would appreciate, the markets, with Jimmy Moyaha talking about from the MoneyWeb Markets update, right? Jimmy?
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Good afternoon, Dumi, and good afternoon to the listeners. Yes, we've got a full show today. We're taking a look at a couple of stories. We're looking at the gas amendment bill that is on the table at the moment and is being discussed around that. We're looking at the implications that will then have on the gas sector. We know that the likes of Sasol are pulling out of that gas pipeline that runs from Mozambique, and PetroSA is set to take over that. So we're going to dig into that and just see the economics behind that, what it's going to do to gas prices, what we can expect to potentially happen from that perspective. And then we've got a separate conversation with Equities around their wheeling arrangement with the city of Cape Town. They've started an arrangement to provide some of their alternative energy into the grid for end users or for offtake agreements that they've got in place there. We're going to look into that, understand how the wheeling agreement will work and how the structure is going to work there, and what it means for carbon footprints and alternative energy and all of the things around moving away from the grid and taking off the pressure from the grid, and try and make sense of just what the deal looks like. Then we've got a conversation with Lesaka Technologies. They reported their third quarter results alongside yesterday's announcement that they are looking to acquire Adumo for 1.6 billion rand with the help of African Rainbow Capital. I've got a conversation with Lesaka's CEO, Lincoln Mali, around those developments and try and understand what that means for us and where we go from here. And then we've got a conversation with our SME. Thursdays are our SME feature week or feature day, and we're chatting to a gentleman by the name of Elaine Rosa, who started a company called Double Shot. They do a variety of interesting and very flavorful drinks, and he joins me in studio for that conversation. Be sure to listen to that. We'll have all of the details about the business up on our podcasts and on the show as well. But before we get to that, markets have been interestingly not as unexpected as we thought. So there's some consistency that seems to be forming in the markets. The rand holding steady at 18 rand 49, just below 18 rand 50. And Henko Kriya has been keeping an eye on those markets. He joins me now to do a quick summary of what's been moving the markets throughout the day. Good afternoon, Henko. Always lovely to speak to you. I see resources actually had a good day for once. Bitcoin seemingly holding above 60,000. It seems like we shouldn't complain about anything. Seems like a very good day.
Yes, I agree with you, Jimmy. And if you look at it, we've actually been having a couple of a few great days this past week. In terms of the markets, I think we've had green days all of these last couple of days, at least for this week. But hello to you, Jimmy, and hi, Ashraf and Tumi, and good evening to all the listeners. US markets at this stage trading 0.5% stronger. That's the Dow Jones, the S&P 500, and the Nasdaq. And the picture just as pretty in Europe, where their stocks finished in the green a short while ago. The FTSE 100 in London gained 0.5%. Then the DAX in Germany was 1.1% up, and the CAC 40 in France finished the day 0.7% stronger. And then nearby us, the JSE's all-share index gained 0.5% today and finished at a level of 77,539 points. The industrial index also 0.5% stronger. And yes, like you mentioned, the resources index 1.6% up at the end of the day. The financial index lost a little bit, finished a little bit weaker, about 0.2% down at the end of the day. But a company like Anglo had a great day, finishing 3% stronger. Then Naspers and Prosus riding on the success and on the back of Tencent, also having a great day. Naspers finished 2.5% stronger, and Prosus gained 2% today. But there were some companies that gave poorer performances today, like Pick n Pay, which lost 4%. There was also Sappi, which was 3.5% weaker. Sasol and Northam each lost 3%. And then Amplats, the Life Healthcare Group, and AECI finished the day 2% weaker. There's also Netcare, Kumba, and South32. They each lost 1.8% today. But back to the good news. DRD Gold gained 3%. Followed by ARM, which finished the day 2.5% up, and Equities, Italtal, and Tsogosan each gained 2% today. Then on the commodities market, the price of gold is currently $2,335 an ounce. Silver is on the upside, and the price climbing, now sitting at $28.20. Platinum trading at $980, and palladium $965. And unfortunately, the price of Brent crude also on the rise, now sitting at $84 a barrel. Then the rand, yes, holding steady and looking very similar to how it looked yesterday this time and the day before that. currently at 18 Rand 47 to the US dollar, 23 Rand 13 to the pound, 19 Rand 90 to the euro, and 12 Rand 20 to the Australian dollar. Bitcoin also staying very steady and now trading at $61,000, and that is 1,160,000 Rand. And Jimmy, that is how the markets performed.
Thank you for that update, Henko. Very interesting developments on the market front. We're certainly going to dig into these and other stories a little later on when we have the show. I noted that Lusaka, off the back of the announcements that they've given us, was up about 12% on the day's trade as well. So we'll dig into these and other stories just after 6 p.m. For now, Ashraf, back to you and the team.
Thanks for that, Jimmy. Right, so Herman Mashaba with me. He's the leader of Action SA. We're going to talk to him up to 6 o'clock. Herman, that question we had regarding the truck drivers and relating to foreign nationals.
Well, under Action SA government, that will never happen. Where in a country where we're sitting with 44% unemployment, 12 million of our own people who can drive 10 trucks, there's just no way that will allow anyone from coming anywhere in the country bring that kind of skill here in South Africa. We can train our people to drive trucks. It's not the kind of skill that South Africa requires. One thing that I think I need to make clear, South Africa was built of migrants, and we want to continue bringing people of the world to visit our country, to come and invest in our country, bring the skills that we don't have. But truck driving, working in restaurants, under Action SA, it'll never happen.
So
running
what will
spaza shops. Yeah. What will happen?
Because there's a perception that Herman Mashaba is anti-migrant, and in particular anti-African migrant.
Well, I think it's a kind of the propaganda articulated by people, obviously, who are the direct beneficiaries of this, at the cost of our sovereignty as a country, at the cost of poor South Africans living in Alexander and Soweto and our poor communities. So obviously there are people who are benefiting out of this, and because of obviously the illegal activity, they've got US dollars to use to buy influence. Unfortunately, they are not going to silence Herman Mashaba, because Herman Mashaba believes in the rule of law. The constitution and the laws of this country does not allow anyone to come into this country illegally. Anyone who comes into this country illegally, that person
okay, so I think illegal is a given. I understand that. I mean, why would you allow anybody illegally? Yes. Now legally, a foreign national who's a truck driver or a foreign national who's
how can you be in South Africa as a truck driver?
No, they legally apply to come into the country, and then they get a job as a truck driver.
As a truck driver, the constitution of this country will never allow anyone to really get South African documentation as a driver. Please check our laws.
So help me with that. What does the constitution say?
Well,
nobody can come in as a domestic worker?
No one can come into this country as a domestic worker. No. Anyone coming into this country, you have to, obviously, if you come through the right channels, and legally, you have to really be assessed. What type of skill are you bringing to this country?
But what about people who are migrants? Who, I won't even call them refugees, but they're migrants from people like from Zimbabwe, people from Somalia, but I could mention 50 other countries. Yes, they may not be the most highly skilled.
Yes,
but they migrating from their countries
for economic reasons.
Well, survival reasons.
No, and then what about South Africans? Okay, must we go to Somalia or must we go to Zimbabwe? You won't be accepted in Zimbabwe or anywhere else in the world. So if South Africans are not allowed to go Zimbabwe to be truck drivers, or Somalia or Pakistan or United States of America, why should South Africa be an exception? South Africa is not going to be a country where we test to see if chaos can develop our economy.
Okay.
So truck drivers will never qualify to get South African documentation as per our laws of the Republic of South Africa.
You've said a lot about the state of the country, and I think many people will agree with you. There's so much wrong. I mean, I can list 10 things that I find dramatically wrong with our country, right? What then is your take with the DA advert? And I put it to you only because it's another party, but a party that you are effectively partners with in a potential coalition.
Well, the thing is, to be fair, Action SA is a completely independent party. DA is a completely independent party. How they market themselves has got absolutely nothing to do with me. I know the DA does not agree with us on the question of immigration. For them, it's a free-for-all. We, Action SA, this is non-negotiable. At the same time, on the question of the flag, I think for us as Action SA, our own personal feeling is that the DA has gone too far here. We understand with them they can be unhappy with the ANC, they can be angry with the ANC, they can ban the ANC flag, but they cannot ban the symbol of this country, the unity of South Africans. Ashraf, when I voted on the 27th of April 1994, at the age of 24, first time to really get an opportunity to be a South African, you know what that flag actually meant to me? It meant so much. That flag does not belong to the ANC who messed up this country. So I think for us as Action SA, we take serious exception to the banning of our flag. If they are angry with the ANC, if they are truly angry, let them ban the ANC flag, not ban the symbol of this country that goes beyond ANC or DA.
So have you told them, because they're your partners, potentially in a coalition? Have you told John Steenhuisen?
It's not. We're not partners to that level. I think please read our agreement. We signed our agreement in front of this nation. It is not a secret.
Okay, but potentially
so basically,
you would be part of the agreement.
No, it's not part of the agreement. There's issues on how we as Action SA are going to market ourselves in terms of illegal immigration. If DA doesn't agree with us, it doesn't matter. It's not a DA policy, it's an Action SA policy. Action SA policy is to in-source exploited South Africans by these so-called labor brokers. It's not a policy of the DA. So what I'm trying to say, if the DA does something, it is up to them. It's up to the voters of South Africa to do something about this.
But you may still hold hands after May 29th with them.
If the voters force us to go into a coalition, Ashraf, one thing that you must understand, it's not something political parties choose to have a coalition. Coalition are forced by political parties, by the voters all over the world, over the last 100 years of democratic dispensation. Political parties, when you go out and campaign, you go and campaign to get outright majority. But in the case of South Africa right now, we've entered an era of coalition. But at the end of the day, for us as Action SA, when we go out there and campaign, we go and campaign for outright majority. But we accept the electoral outcome. If people say Action SA going to a coalition, that's when we look for we look for multi-party.
I want to ask you about jobs and the economic system that you believe in after this.
Any person aggrieved by any political advertisement or political election broadcast that is broadcast by SAFM may lodge a complaint within 5 days from broadcast with the Independent Communications Authority of South Africa, ICASA. To lodge your complaint, please contact ICASA's Compliance Department via telephone number on 012-568-3233. That's 012-568-3233. Or email broadcastingcompliance@icasa.org.za. That's broadcastingcompliance@icasa.org.za. Alternatively, complaintsccc@icasa.org.za. That's complaintsccc@icasa.org.za.
S3 brings you thought-provoking and informative documentaries, Thursdays at 9 p.m. The TikTok Effect sees the BBC's disinformation correspondent investigate the truth behind TikTok's meteoric success. With over 1 billion monthly users, TikTok has taken the world by storm. Mariana Spring talks to ex-employees, providing our first real insight into what happens inside the company. The TikTok Effect airs Thursday the 9th of May at 9 p.m. only on S3. Channel your best drama with BBC Primetime, only on S3. Open up.
Ashraf Garda on the National Pulse.
Chatting to Herman Mashaba for the next 5-7 minutes or so, the leader of Action SA. Herman, let's talk about economic policy. I mean, you made it up front. You say this every time, right? I'm a capitalist, and you say that with pride. Now, I don't want to be a capitalist. I don't like it. I like something in between that. But you also refer to this nonsense of socialism. You said so earlier on, right? Why do you call socialism nonsense?
Well, socialism, it's an evil system. It's an evil system of oppression. It's a system of mass murder. It's a system where the leadership of this communist socialist government, their motive is the oppression of civil society, particularly the educated, the successful, and so forth. Socialism wants people to remain poor, wants people to be dependent on government. They don't want clever blacks, or they don't want clever society. It is for that reason, if I look at the advent of communism from 1917, when Lenin and the Communist Party in Russia took over.
But you say mass murder.
Mass murder.
But there are examples of capitalist countries that are guilty of causing warfare in many parts of the world. The best known example is the USA. It's capitalist, but they meddle and they directly or indirectly cause wars.
Please, Ashraf, do me a favor. Please, I'm not saying there's no system that is perfect, because human beings, we are fallible as human beings. So I think we must not really expect perfection in a human being, because there's no perfect human being.
What's perfect about capitalism?
No, but socialism, communism, it's known all over the world. The only thing Lenin, Joseph Stalin, Mao Zedong, Cuba, Fidel Castro, these are mass murderers. It's recorded in history.
We don't have much time, so I want to push on this. So
state
the case for capitalism.
For capitalism, free market economy. It allows someone like me, born in poverty, to exercise my God-given talent, to go out and legally make money, pay taxes, and make more money than I can consume. And then it assists me to assist other people.
But isn't that going to take too long? I mean, you're the exception to the rule. There are very few Herman
Mashabas because you are lived under an apartheid system that oppressed us as black people. We lived under an oppressive system called the ANC Tripartite Alliance over the last 30 years that has destroyed black talent, destroyed our education system. I can tell you this high unemployment, this murder rate, this rape, drugs in our communities, this is not a mistake. This is an engineered program by the ANC. It's not a mistake. This is engineered by the ANC.
How do you play out then capitalism in terms of this winner-take-all in a country where the majority who are disadvantaged, and you've spoken a lot about that, they need a foot up. They need help.
Yes, absolutely.
But in a winner-take-all, they're not going to get that.
What you do, if you want your society to progress, allow free market system, make sure that there's a rule of law, make sure that the government does not, politicians don't steal money, go and develop communities which have been disadvantaged, make sure that you give them the best education ever so that you can produce engineers, accountants, lawyers, and so forth. That's where you invest. But you can only grow your economy when you have the private sector driving commerce and make sure that they pay the taxes and you don't steal that money.
So what would you do to the SOEs right now and affirmative action, for example?
Well, SOEs, one that personally I will get rid of with immediate effect, pay someone to take it away, is SA Airways. South Africa right now, with the massive backlog, infrastructure backlog, South Africa does not need to really have an airline. This airline, SAA, give it to someone, pay them to take it off the country, to take it off the country's balance sheet. But entities like Eskom, we need them, but they must be run by professional engineers and accountants, and they must compete, and we allow the private sector to compete with them. If Eskom cannot really compete, there is private sector that can produce cheap, efficient electricity, then Eskom must die natural.
We got 3 minutes or a bit left, so I'm going to rush this one. Job creation. How?
Well, you create jobs by what I've just said. You create jobs by allowing private sector participation, create an equal opportunity. Don't create equal outcome. You create equal opportunity. And then what happens with Ashraf when you create equal opportunity? God has given us different talents. Like you said, you don't want to be a capitalist. Mine, God has given me a talent to be a capitalist. God has given you such talent to be a broadcaster. Someone else wants to be a policeman. Someone wants to be an accountant and so forth. So we need a government that creates equal opportunity. And then outcome will be determined by the talents that God has given us.
We've got a minute and a bit to go. Critics are saying we like what Herman says, but we're not happy with his what seems to be a neutral stance against regarding the Palestinian issue. Quickly, your thoughts?
Well, what is my neutrality? I think.
Well, what's your position?
My position with the Palestinian and the Israeli people, I pray for them every day that one day leadership must emerge that can get to those two communities and to really live side by side.
All right.
Right now, our focus as Action SA is on the 86 people being murdered in this country, a country with the highest sustainable unemployment rate in the world, in a country where drug dealers, drug cartels are using South Africa as a playground for them. Our house is burning. Right now, we'll pray for other countries, but one thing for sure is my house is burning. I'm going to focus on making sure that I can save my family.
We're on to news time, so I'm going to steal 30 seconds, right? All your wish list now reflects a wish list of winning an election. Very likely you may not win the total election. How do you see South Africa working out beyond May 29?
Well,
in 30 seconds.
Well, I think, Ashraf, if we can have the ANC continuing to be in government, South Africa is in big trouble because we are not going to make it up to, economically, we're not going to make it up to 2029. So it is important for the 27.7 million South Africans, go out and come out in your numbers, because if you come out in your numbers, we'll have and usher in a new government in this country that you can hold accountable. And that government that you elect on the 29th of this month, please don't wait for 30 years for them to fail you. Come 2026, punish that party, because the only way politicians are going to listen to you, that's when you know you are watching them.
Okay, Herman Mashaba, your time is up. If people are convinced, we'll know only after May 29. Thank you so much for your time. Much appreciated. There we are. Herman Mashaba, the leader of Action SA. Let's get, thanks for joining us for the show. Lots of things podcast put up on our platforms. You'll check it out on social media as well. Let's get the news now. It's just gone 6 o'clock with Greg House.
Learner stabbed to death in the Free State. An SA man arrested on cruise ship. Good evening. A 10-year-old learner's been stabbed to death, allegedly by another learner from a different school at Brandfort in the Free State. Education Department spokesperson Howard Indaba says the deceased was a learner at a local primary school. He says he was stabbed 3 times, allegedly by a 9-year-old grade 4 learner from a neighbouring school near their homes. He died on the scene. Indaba says according to the mother of the suspect, he'd been complaining about consistent bullying by the deceased. Police are investigating. A South African man working on board a cruise ship off the coast of the U.S. state of Alaska has been arrested by the FBI on criminal charges in relation to a stabbing incident on board the ship. The U.S. Justice Department says in a statement that Ntando Sagoni was working on the cruise ship when other